Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and it's the aftermath of the UFO hearing tonight from Disclosure Team Podcast. Vinnie Adams will be here. I'm telling you, his hair is high and tight tonight. You're going to love it. Vinny's one of the great voices of our field, and this is a good score for us to have him on the air. Let's say hello to every one of you in the chat room right now. We got Race Fan in the gold medal position. Little Cam taking home a silver. And Tim Mothman and his goatee with a bronze medal tonight. Hello there, Christine Lynn. Nice to see you. Double day. Thanks for coming on in. T-Bone, my man, thank you for joining us. How you doing, buddy? As we continue on with our roll call tonight. Brown Dwarf, Karen in the Woo Train. Nice to see you both here. As we continue on down. Kitty Cattywhack, Frankie B. Nice to see you both. Joey Glow is here. Joey Glow will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. JSCO, Deborah Rooney, just another guy named Harry. Nice to see you all. Mel WD40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want that rigidness. Vinny doesn't like the rigidness of a podcast radio show. So he's like, Dave, get Mel to lube it up, and we will slide right through this show like butter. Butter. So that's what Mel is doing. Let's move on here. Cool Arrow, nice to see you here. And who's next on our list? Let us say hello to little Timmy James. How you doing, buddy? Good to have you here. Road Flare, thanks for coming on in. So we continue on with our roll call here. Hello there, Chris. Teen, nice to see you. Major Lee is here. Major Lee will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio, he is only accepting donations from grifters. That's it, because he loves his grifters. Move on here. Mama Catherine, I love you, my dear. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you for joining us. Continuing on with our roll call, we say hello next to, scrolling on down, Dragonfly. Nice to have you here. Lars Janssen is here. He's wearing Peter Forsberg's old number 21 tonight as he's starting at center ice tonight. Yeah, center ice. All right, moving on as we continue on with our roll call here. Where are we? Okay. Millennium, my man. How you doing? And who's next on our list? It's Kimberly Burgess. Good to see you, Kimberly. Operation Shutdown. Thomas Rock. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hello there, Nina Williams. S for Net. Erico, how you doing? And who's next? Algaray over on Twitch. Bench pressed 450 pounds 37 times. He had to get jacked up for Vinny tonight, so he is. JBD, nice to see you. Hi there, Carla. Hope you're having a good evening. Alien Critter, J Truth Seeker, Lisa Smith. Thank you all for coming on in. Hi, Kurt M. Good to see you. As we continue on with our roll call, Scott's Life, nice to have you here. And who's next on our list? The Fapster is here. Yeah, he's still gloating over the World Series. Another 348 days of this. It's going to be terrible. Mike Rivers, how you doing? Yennefer with a soft J. Thanks for coming on in. Jeff Steve Garvey, he'll hit a home run for you. Ethanol, thanks for joining us tonight. Hi there, Greg Maloney in Thailand. How you doing? Mike Bothwell. Kawi Schneider, how you guys doing? Thank you for coming on in. Hi, Vanessa. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we have Vinnie Adams from the podcast Disclosure Team and YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe on both of those. We're going to be talking about the UFO fallout from the hearings yesterday, and who could we do it better than with Vinnie? We couldn't do it better. Not at all. We're in roll call here. Robert Redmond, nice to have you here. Polly, good to see you. Robert Lamoth, thanks for coming on in. Amber's Paraworld, good to see you. It's been a while. Nice to have you back. Scrolling on down, Marty Burback, nice to see you here. And we are caught up. A reminder to all of you, the Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swing as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Jive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Jive Charities today. You can find us on our website. We got a power show of UFO information tonight on the following day of the hearings from Disclosure Team YouTube channel and podcast. Vinnie Adams will be here momentarily. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller has another creepy story from Alabama. Tim James will be here for the abbreviated UFO report. It's Dave 101 night. Guess what I'm going to be talking about? And the weird news of the week. Vinnie Adams is a great podcaster from the United Kingdom with his show Disclosure Team. He's an influencer following UAP disclosure quite carefully. Over time, he has built up sources and assets to be one of the most foremost podcasters in the field, to where people can find the latest news on the UFO story. Vinnie followed the hearings in Washington, D.C. carefully and thoroughly. Tonight, we take a look at his reaction and the reaction of others to a great congressional hearing. Vinnie Adams, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How you been doing?
I've been doing good, Dave. Thank you so much for the invitation to join you. I'm really looking forward to sort of digging into what happened yesterday in Washington, D.C.
Now, my friend, you know some of these panelists that were on there. I know you're quite up to date on your friendship, I'm going to say, with Lou Elizondo. You have talked with these other people who were on there, whether it's Gallaudet or Schellenberger. Nobody knew who Mike Gold was, and I don't think after this hearing nobody will. But overall, what was your thoughts of what happened?
I think there are different ways that we could look at this hearing. From my perspective, I would say, I'm very aware that a lot of the important information is classified, and so it was never going to come out in a public setting. I think what I was looking for were the right questions to be asked by the members of the House of Representatives, and for the witnesses to kind of lead them towards the gatekeepers, so that in any future hearings the right people can be subpoenaed and the answers can be garnered from these people. So I think it was a positive. I think it went well. And I've heard that there were some individual meetings after the hearing with some members where maybe some classified things were spoken about. I hope so. There certainly wasn't a closed session this time. So I think we'll see in the coming weeks what comes out of it.
As we get deeper into this subject, let's get the audience to know a little bit about you. What turned you on to creating Disclosure Team?
I'd been researching this subject since about 2010, just as a private person with interest, but it led to actually spending many long nights and hours in front of my computer going through all the declassified documents, whether it be from all the multiple agencies and military branches in the US to foreign files from Australia, France, South America, for a good decade, just trying to piece this puzzle together. And I think it was during the pandemic, when we were all kind of forced to be home with not much to do, I just decided to kind of take all of that enthusiasm and passion and just put it out online through social media, which then led to the podcast.
You have, in my opinion, with a number of others, have become some of the most respected voices in this field. Now, when we start these things, we don't aim for popularity. We don't aim for clickbait. We're trying to get a message out because we have our own questions. It's the reason why almost 10 years ago that I started SOR. We'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary on the 30th of this month. And for you, how has this morphed for you? Because you started it out as a hobby to kind of learn because you had a curiosity, and now it's become, outside of your beautiful daughter, has become probably the most important piece of your life.
It really has. Yeah, it's completely taken over. I never expected to be in the position that I'm in, to have contact with so many respectable individuals in this community that, I was following for a decade plus. I never thought I would get to talk to them, let alone meet a lot of them and become, friends with them. So I don't take any of this for granted. It is a grind. It is some of the hardest work I've ever had to do. But because of that passion, it doesn't feel like a job. It just feels like I'm playing a very small part in a very big machine, and I'm certainly just going to keep going as well as I can.
What is the biggest thing you have learned over time here since starting Disclosure Team, from the beginning to right now, where we're having this conversation a day after the UFO hearings?
I think the biggest thing I've learned is that whatever the phenomena represents is probably something so far beyond our comprehension that it simply doesn't come down to little gray beings traveling through the vastness of space from Zeta Reticuli. I feel that there is a lot more to it than that. And hopefully when we do find out the answers, that it'll be something that we can absorb and deal with.
For me, I look at it as a personal quest. And, we try and bring the information out as much as we can to our social media audience, to our radio station audience. And we love our radio stations so much, and they support us so greatly on this. It's a tough message for people to comprehend. And more people are starting to open up to the fact that, hey, there's something here. I equated it yesterday to a friend of mine that we started off with making a little snowball in our hands, and we've rolled it down the hill, and that snowball is starting to get bigger. It's exciting. It's scary. There's a lot of people now coming out of the woodwork who are in the know, and mostly who think they're in the know, but have no clue. How do you find the balance between the people whom you've got to know and a lot of the newer people coming in? Like, example, Logan Paul is now all over this subject. He doesn't know anything about UFOs, and that's not an insult to him, because he could afford to have a great big team to all of a sudden get him up to speed. But how do you look at the way this field is growing now?
Well, I think, we've always cried out for it to be taken seriously on a grand scale, so that we're not just sat in the sidelines, in the fringes of, popular culture and mainstream news. I think we have to be optimistically cautious, though, because, I'm very welcoming, and I love seeing new people come into the field. But I think the proof is in the pudding. Let's see, how they are, what work they do. It soon becomes clear sometimes when people come into this community and all they are looking for is money or, the fame and things like that, which there is no money or fame in this subject. So they're almost fighting an endless battle for something that doesn't exist. And, I think I'm lucky because I have so many friends and connections in this subject that, if I need help or assistance, then I'll go to these people. And so you have a network that will help you, and you don't kind of go blindly into it, whether it's trusting someone or just believing something because someone says something. So, I try and utilize all of those things to kind of keep my head on an even keel.
What's the biggest burn you have got in this field from a source or from information? Not people. I don't care about people, but just the biggest lead that you have taken, like, this is true, and then you find out that it's completely false.
That's a really difficult question because I'm so optimistically cautious. I make such a point of it. I've never really gone too far down one rabbit hole maybe, and put all my chips in or my eggs in one basket, let's say. I've never really done that. So I don't feel like I've got a really good, valid answer to that. And that's not avoiding the question at all. I'm sure there's something I'll think about it, off air at a later time. But for now, I think I'm in pretty good stead with regards to that.
What's your favorite part of this?
I think it's the thought that we've got a chance of actually maybe getting to the bottom of this, or not to the bottom of this, but getting to that first stage of disclosure or confirmation, whatever people want to call it these days, some sort of acknowledgement that this has been worth it and it's not just a pipe dream. I think that's a possibility, and that feels pretty good.
I think it's going to feel really good too as we get more information out there and more stories start coming out. The worry that I have with everything is that this is today's flavor of the month. We're always looking for a cause. And look, I'm a big UFO guy. I'm an experiencer. I'm somebody who takes this subject very seriously, even though, we do talk a lot of the woo side of everything over here, because I love hearing about people's experiences. That's my number one favorite part of this show. But that being said, I always wonder whether or not we're seeing like the balloon blowing up right now, and then eventually that balloon pops. I don't want to see that, but if it's for the betterment of the community, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, because at some time this story has to end, whether it's with disclosure, whether it's with confirmation, and they say we're not talking about it anymore, or maybe this continues a lifetime because we've opened the door. The door is open, maybe a crack, but it's not open wide yet. And so I'm just curious, what do you see the future being?
I mean, my positive side says that we will get to that answer or that confirmation. And if not, the one thing that I always take a step back and say to myself is that whatever happens, the journey that I've taken, the friends that I've made, it'll all be worth it just for that. Just to have had this experience and this opportunity to be a part of something way bigger than myself, way bigger than the country I live in. And it's been such a wonderful time. And if that's all I get to take away from it, then I'm happy to live with that.
It was a historic hearing yesterday, but I'm hearing over where you are in the UK, the BBC never covered it. And was it pretty much a story that went silent?
So far it is, yeah. Very surprising, because we know from last year's hearing back in July of 2023, that was covered quite widely here in the UK. I'm hoping that it's just a bit of a delay. It takes a few days for things to kind of really settle down, and then hopefully people will start picking it up. But it's no surprise at the end of the day that the subject here is still well within the realms of the taboo, and the stigma is still really deep here. So we shall see. We shall see how it plays out.
What is that stigma in the UK regarding this?
I think it's down to just the history of the subject here, the Ministry of Defence and the British government being so silent on this subject now for getting on for a couple of decades. It used to be talked about quite a lot. We had lots of UFO files released in the early 2000s, but it all went quiet, it all went dead. And then the other thing, we've got the tabloid newspapers who will still happily throw Mulder and Scully or a green alien on the front cover of the newspapers with some silly alien headline. And of course, that's going to keep the stigma nice and strong.
Well, you know what? The stigma is still out there, but it is breaking down. It is breaking down. Let's start getting into why we brought you on here today, because we have you for almost 2 hours here where we're going to talk strictly about the UFO hearings and where we go from here. I asked you right off the bat your overall reaction to everything, and you're much like me, where you saw a lot of positives out of this. This was the first time I had really seen a lot of positives come out of this. Maybe not from the guests who were there in Tim Gallaudet, in Lou Elizondo, in Mike Gold, and Matthew Schellenberger, but in the line of questioning. That's where I really got excited. Whether it was Anna Paulina Luna or Nancy Mace was a bulldog in there demanding information. I want to hit you up with this right off the bat, because right off the bat in her opening remarks, Nancy Mace came out and stated that she was not supposed to, or pardon me, she was warned about mentioning Immaculate Constellation. And Anna Paulina Luna had warned her about that literally she could be bringing the men in black, lack of a better term, onto herself by even bringing it up in this hearing for public record. And then she slammed it all down like, come at me, bro. Literally, she goes, come at me, bro. I thought that was brilliant. Brilliant. And I didn't think it was an act either.
No, not at all. It was great. It was how we wanted it to start. It shows that they've been doing the homework. Whether it's them or their staffers have been doing it for them to prepare them, and they prepared them well. It was really good to see, really encouraging straight off the bat, like you said. So, yeah, and I'm glad they didn't hold back when it came to Immaculate Constellation. You know, it's the first time we've had, I believe, in a UFO hearing, the mention of an acknowledged special access program, you know, straight out there for the whole world to see. I think that was really impressive.
I thought it was impressive, too, the way that it was handled. Once again, not so impressive on the information that was brought forward by the people who were interviewed. But once again, I don't give a lot of politicians credit, because a lot of them, I mean, let's face it, the first hearings, we had some 95-year-old political geriatric who was literally, you know, there during World War II, you know, still elected probably the first time there, asking about the idiotic questions about swamp gas and little green men in Venus. Just the same thing we heard in the 1960s, you know, and now we're getting into the heart of the matter. Like, whether it was Immaculate Constellation, whether it was private companies like General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin, which were both brought up, whether it was alien hybrids, like, they were pulling no punches. And the other thing about it, and I'm curious your opinion, and Science Bob brought this up last night, there wasn't one congressperson there who was looking back at the staffers for questions or for information. They were prepared, like you said. Your
Very
overall
much.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like, just to reiterate what I said, I think they've been taking their time to get this right. I think they understand, you know, it's been, 16 months almost since David Grush gave his testimony. You know, these things don't come around that often. So I think they knew they had to make the most of it. They had to be ready and deliver. And I think they did.
I thought they did too, but, you know, once again, it comes down to the panelists. We'll get into the panelists, you know, when we get back from break at the bottom of the hour. But just on the positive level of things, because I think a lot of these type of conversations, we want to hammer them like chopped meat. We do, because we're on the inside. We're living this every single day. And most of the people in Washington, D.C., this is a blip on the radar compared to the economy, inflation, the election that was just held. There's a lot of things on their plate besides the potential of not being alone in the universe, which for many Congress people, the majority of them, is still something they don't want to tag their name to. So the fact that we saw these heavyweights and not just the smaller names looking to make a name for themselves politically. I thought it was overall something that I'm now looking forward to another hearing, because this one was way different than the others. The tone was different.
It was, absolutely, yeah, and I think that comes down again to just the preparation and the thirst for this subject, the seriousness that they're taking it. They really do genuinely want to get to the bottom of this. We see so many members of the House in this, what they call now the UAP caucus, putting a lot of time and energy into it, and that's really positive. That's what we want. That's definitely what we needed to see from them, and it's a relief to see it. Thank you. Thank you to them.
Did you get an opportunity to talk to anybody who was there?
I did, yeah. I spoke to Nick Gold from Declassify UAP. I regularly speak to Nick anyway, but he was there. He attended the hearing. He also attended the UAP Disclosure Fund event that happened after it, which was very interesting, with Senator Rounds in attendance. And I recorded a show for my channel today with Nick, which will come out tomorrow. So it was good to see a lot of people from the community really taking the time to get to the event and be involved.
I know you're a UAP guy, okay, and I'm a UFO guy. It's probably our biggest tete-a-tete that we have in our friendship.
Well, I'm actually both. I see them differently. I see UAP as the more modern cases, but the UFO cases are the historic cases that I kind of first studied for that first decade before I did all of this.
Were you surprised yesterday that the acronym UFO was not used once?
No, because I know all the briefing packets and documents that these members have seen will all contain UAP. It was almost the reason in 2021 when the term was kind of reintroduced by Jay Stratton and Hillary Clinton was using it, was just to kind of avoid the UFO term and the instant roadblock, because, well, don't want to talk about that. It's too loaded. And I think that's why it came back in. You have to remember, UAP has been used as far back as the 1950s. It was used in the UK Ministry of Defence Condign report that was released. Well, it was released in 2000, but not publicly until 2006. It's always been there, floating in the background.
Oh, I totally understand that. I get it. But, it's become a political jargon on everything.
It has. I mean, there's no avoiding politicizing this subject now. It's, in the leagues of, the House of Representatives and the Senate. It's almost inevitable that things aren't always going to be how we see it from, the hardcore community.
Are you glad that this has gone down the political road the way it is?
Yes. For me personally, I'm not an experiencer of the phenomena, so I don't have that. Look, I already know that it's real. I don't have that luxury, unfortunately. And I think there's been a cover up for 80 plus years. I think we deserve the truth from the people that are elected to represent us, whether it's in the US, the UK, Canada, or wherever. That's our information as the public, the paying public who pay the wages of a lot of these individuals, the taxes that we pay. It's our truth. So I think it is for the government to kind of come out and make it official. That's when I'll be happy, unless I see a craft tomorrow. Then I maybe won't be so bothered.
Well, the fact that you brought up the taxes, that was a huge point by the Congress people yesterday, is that, there was it's like Fight Club. You never talk about Fight Club, and that UFOs and UAP seem to be the exact way. Is all this money is being directed towards researching this, but nobody admits that it's actually happening. And why are we spending money on something that they're not admitting that it's happening?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, so much money has been spent on this subject in these special access programs and things like that. Wasted trillions of dollars. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional, and there's no oversight whatsoever. And that's what's needed. Things need to be followed by the book. And it's time to kind of bring that out and stop it from happening any further.
Oh, I would agree with you on that. Vinnie, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. When we return with Vinnie Adams from Disclosure Team Podcast, we are going to get into the panelists. It was a lot of vanilla, not a lot of chocolate coated on the ice cream, if you want to use that terminology. But we're going to find out from Vinnie what he thought of Matt Schellenberger, Mike Gold, Tim Gallaudet, and Lou Elizondo during yesterday's UFO hearings on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up right after this. All right, we're clear. Just remember, our YouTube audience can hear us.
No problem.
Good start, man.
Good. I'm glad. It's keeping me awake here. It's 5:30 a.m. So yeah, I'm glad.
I appreciate it.
Oh man, anytime. You know, I'd never turn it down.
You pulled an all-nighter for this?
Yeah. I mean, I was up late recording shows, editing and that, and I thought if I could get a couple of hours sleep, but then I'd have to go through the whole waking up process, and I thought, let's just stay up.
Good for you. Where is home in the UK for you?
I'm in Sheffield in the north of England. So close to Manchester, Liverpool, that sort of area. So
when you fly to, I guess you'd fly into New York, or would you go?
Mainly New York. Yeah, I fly. It varies. I fly from Manchester down to London, London to New York, and then New York to Raleigh, North Carolina. That's the general route. It's quite a long journey. I'm used to it now, though. I've done it so many times.
I've never been to the UK.
Oh man, it's amazing.
I've never been off in North America.
It's a whole world out there, brother.
I know. It's not the world that bugs me. It's the oceans I have to cross.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, again, I've kind of got used to that now. But yeah, I was never been much of a flyer or anything like that. And
I love flying, but I know that if it's the same reason why I will never go on a cruise ship, because that's the day Jaws is going to take down that ship.
Yeah, no, man. I see those videos come up when I'm scrolling blindly through YouTube, and you just see them giant waves, and those massive cruise ships just look like little tiny boats, and it's just
There was just one the other day that was on. I don't know where it was, but the ship was listing.
I saw that. Yeah,
and you see this husband and wife walking down the aisle or down the hallway on an angle trying to get away, and the guy is like shoving stuff out of the way so it doesn't hit his lady, and I'm like, that's not for me.
No. No, thank you.
Dave's not doing that.
No, you can have as many casinos, swimming pools and things like that on a cruise ship. It ain't enough to get me on there.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate that. Ah, yes, not Matt Schellenberger, Michael Schellenberger. Good job, Dave. All right. If I screw it up again, just kind of slap me across the face.
So good.
Yeah. Hi, Jessica S. We got about 2 minutes here, bud.
Cool.
That's right, alien critter. I would have to cross over countless hungry fish. Yeah. Just not doing it. Not doing it. When are you back in North America?
Start of January, I fly back out.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. Get Christmas out of the way, and then, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. For people who don't know, Vinnie actually dates a beautiful lady in it's up to you whether you want to name her or not, but a beautiful lady in the United States. So he is dude's like got frequent flyer miles from London to New York all the time.
Yeah. I think I've spent 20 weeks in the US this year. So
wow.
A lot of time.
That is awesome, man. Awesome. Got about a minute here. Big thank you tonight to Area 53, Richard, T-Bone, and Scott for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support, everybody. Thank you. Resonate. I've seen an iceberg in the Fraser River. It was a number of years ago. They were tiny, but still iceberg. It was kind of cool. All right, Vinny, we got 15 seconds. And here we go. Here we go, the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Vinnie Adams is here from the podcast and YouTube channel Disclosure Team. In my opinion, and I have no problem saying this, I think he's one of the most credible voices in the field going on right now. Vinny, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Loving the show, Dave. Really looking forward to the rest of it. Bring it on.
Panelists, Michael Schellenberger, Lou Elizondo, Tim Gallaudet, Mike Gold. They were the ones who had the questions fired at them. Happy, disappointed, exactly what you thought with the no real answers being given, no real information. What was your overall thought? So let's start with Lou Elizondo.
Oh, look, we've been crying out for Lou to be put under oath in front of Congress for some time now, and we finally got it. So I think that was just a big plus. It was a nice surprise, last minute almost, because the list didn't really get released until quite close to the hearing this time around. Obviously, Tim Gallaudet we'd known for a few weeks. So I think a lot of people were hoping for a new whistleblower that we didn't know the name of, someone that had maybe worked firsthand with some of this materials and maybe the legacy programs. We didn't get that. But, I think overall with 4 people from sort of different areas, I think it was okay. Yeah, happy with it.
I thought Lou looked nervous, and especially with his media tour where he has been going on everything from late night television to midday talk shows to famous podcasts and like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and others. I really thought that he would be a lot more open. But he seemed to, sometimes when you get to the big dance, when you get to that gold medal game, you clam up a little bit. And that's honestly what I thought about his testimony yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think he admitted it himself that he was slightly nervous. I mean, he's got to be always got to be very careful about what he says. But I'd imagine that under oath in such a big setting, you've kind of got to be that extra bit prepared or that extra bit, watching what you say, and also it was very clear from the start that there was a lot of time restrictions on a lot of the answers. And so for something that may take a good 5 minutes to explain, if he's only got, say, 2 minutes to explain it, he's got to do it pretty, he's got to get it out in the right way without, and without missing out anything important. And so I think that was potentially part of to play in all of that. But I think we learned some things through almost what he did and didn't say. And we can get into that a little bit as well.
Well, what do you think he missed out on?
I think there was a bit of depth, maybe. You know, he was asked about if he was aware of the crash retrieval programs, and he admitted that he'd, I think a couple of years ago, he'd signed a specific document to say, he won't talk about them. And what was the phrase that one of the people said? It was something about a fight club. If there's no fight club, you can't talk about fight club if there's no fight club, kind of thing, as if to say, if you're signing documents about crash retrieval programs that allegedly don't exist, then that doesn't make sense. And so it was pointing us in the right direction. And, with the Immaculate Constellation story being so big at the moment as well, I think that's the thing I would have liked to have maybe seen a little bit more of, a bit more focused. But I understand that from all the different members and the representatives, they were kind of covering the whole gamut of the UFO subject, from hybrid questions to other things. So we'll see. Maybe by the next hearing, it'll kind of hone in a bit more to where they need to be looking.
Do you think that after getting caught with the ULP photo, unidentified lighting phenomena, do you think, and by the way, we do have a t-shirt of that on our Spaced Out Radio store. It's a very nice lampshade. Do you think that maybe after that incident that you put a little bit of egg on his face? Because it would have for any of us. I don't think that's an insult to him. That maybe he was a little bit overly cautious about it?
Yeah, that was a mistake. And I think Lou would be the first to admit it. I think he kind of did in his response, to the community after it kind of became clear what had happened. Everyone makes mistakes. Yes, it was a big one and the timing wasn't great, but I think we can kind of move on from that. Lou was certainly not a photo analyst. I don't want to make excuses up for him. I think it could have been dealt with completely differently, but it's not enough to suddenly just, throw the baby out with the bathwater on that instance.
Problem is, there was a lot of people within the UFO community who were waiting to pounce on something like that.
Of course, there always will be. There always will be. I mean, I hope they had their fun doing it, but the work must go on, the show must go on, and I know Lou won't stop him in any way, shape, or form.
I thought he was very much adamant that he wanted to get into a skiff and really be able to open up his heart on this subject.
Yeah, very much so. Go on, sorry.
He pushed for a skiff numerous times on everything. Why do you think he did that?
I mean, we only have to look back to last year with David Grush, and the difficulty that the members and the representatives had even getting David Grush into the skiff. That was a real difficulty. I think Lou was almost pushing for it to say, let's get this ball rolling, because if we get any more roadblocks, we've got to work through them, and times are ticking. So let's make it happen as soon as we can. And that way the information can flow. And that's the information that really needs to get into the members' hands so they can really see what's happening.
I could totally get that. We have Vinnie Adams from Disclosure Team on the show tonight talking about the UFO hearings. Tim Gallaudet, who is a former Navy officer who very much has come into the fold, especially over the last 6-8 months, teaming up with Elizondo and others regarding the belief of this topic and that more needs to be done. I found him very monotone. Like, there was no excitement in his voice. There was, very quick yes, no type answers. And I understand that with the time limit, it's difficult to get any type of momentum going with what you're saying. I wish I could have heard more from him, though. I was so excited to hear him. And once again, vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I always temper my expectations with things like this. So I always find that by the end of them, it leaves me wanting more, but I understand at the same time. So, we just have to see, what comes out of it and move on to the next one. And we just got to keep that ball rolling. That's the most important thing. We don't need to be taking any steps back. We certainly don't want it to halt. So I think we have to, pull everyone back together and work on the next hearing. Well, it's certainly the next House hearing.
I get that, but you see, a lot of times what happens is when you go to these types of hearings, there's usually media scrums and everything that goes on, where you get to get the real answers that they wanted to put out there, and we just didn't get that type of reaction. And if this was any other topic, the microphones would have been everywhere. Yes, the UFO people who were there were high-fiving each other because it was like I said, again, I will stand behind it. I thought it was a good hearing. I really did. But on the flip side, there was no follow-up press. And it's not like you get Lou Elizondo or Tim Gallaudet. You're never going to get Mike Gold to come on a Spaced Out Radio or a Disclosure Team show in order to expand on what he meant by these certain topics. So it's difficult because now they just fall into silence again.
I think it does seem that way. I felt like that. And then I spoke with Nick Gold from Declassify UAP, and he says, he's been meeting on Capitol Hill with a lot of staffers in the last few months. He says there is an awful lot of work being done behind the scenes. We don't get to see that. We have the annual hearing, the gap between them, where it just seems like nothing's happening. And that's when frustration builds up. But this is when people are really pulling everything together to really try and move it forward. There is always going to be disappointment in the public domain because we don't quite get what we want, and opportunities may have been missed for certain things, or the mainstream media don't pick up on it like we would like them to, so that it spreads the message. All of that does happen, but I think as long as the main work is happening, I think that is number one. I really do.
Yeah, I totally agree. What was your thoughts on Mike Gold, the former NASA, former Bigelow guy? Realistically, it was like he was at Disneyland at the happiest place on earth, because it was just an infomercial for funding there. Like he was there on an agenda, in my opinion.
Yeah, potentially. I didn't know a lot about him before. I admit that. He was obviously part of NASA's independent study group last year when they had this mixed panel trying to figure out whether NASA should go into their archives and do more study on UAP. He seemed like he was open-minded. He wasn't, a lot of the NASA folk in the independent study group seemed to have already had a bit of a negative outlook on the UFO subject. So I think he was okay with regards to that. But yeah, it didn't give us too much. With the Bigelow connection, I would have maybe liked to have heard more about his work with Bigelow and what he knows about historical connections like ORSAP, and even potentially going into Kona Blue and things like that. We didn't get that. So yeah, it's just one of those things.
Did he bring anything to the table?
I think he brought the serious science head to the table, just to reiterate the importance that we need to look at this through the lens of science and scientists and potentially academia as well. In the grand scheme of things, compared to the other three, no, probably not.
My biggest disappointment was him. I shouldn't say disappointment. My biggest laugh, which turned into my disappointment, was where he was calling NASA probably the most transparent government agency in the United States. And here I'm thinking, you guys have lied about this subject since Gemini. You had astronauts on Gemini, astronauts on Mercury, astronauts with Apollo, the shuttle programs, all claiming to have UFO sightings, whether they were walking on the moon or whether they were floating with the stars. And to sit there and play stupid, much like Bill Nelson has from NASA on this topic, I think it's arrogant. I think it's pompous. And this is where I wish there was a little bit more homework done on him, because if I was holding my next hearing, I would want to know from Bill Nelson, if he was ever to be called on this, what are you hiding? Why are you hiding it? You're talking about that you have a great love of this subject and it intrigues you. Why haven't you gone into your own closet yet?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what needs to happen. When we're talking about NASA and hearings, we need to go straight to the top. You need to pull in the administrator, whether it's Bill Nelson or even previous administrators. That's where they need to go to really put the pressure on. Otherwise, what's the point? It
Well,
needs to be direct, and it needs to be brutal.
Here, right? Is that the whole point? Mike Gold, you're supposed to bring, information to the table, not begging for money.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that one. Yeah.
Did you have a laugh at it too? When
it was. Yeah, I mean, I tried to look at it in another light. Like, well, what was his role in NASA? Maybe he's talking about he got access to the information he needed to do his job. But I think he could have worded it so much better if that's what he meant, because he must know the way that NASA is perceived in the public eye and has been for so long. He can't be that oblivious.
Oh, he was. He put it on full. If you ask me, to me, the bright light of it all was Michael Schellenberger, an independent journalist. He has obviously a few sources within Washington, D.C., really has come out of nowhere. Okay. He hasn't been part of this story at all. And this is what I like about him, is that he hasn't been part of this story. He got the story. He broke the story of Immaculate Constellation, and he ran with it. And he brought a lot of info with him that he even supplied as evidence to the hearings to be put on record. Your thoughts of his involvement in this?
Yeah, it was really good to see. I mean, it was amazing when he first broke the Immaculate Constellation story. He didn't, in that first article, he didn't give a lot of information on it. So we were almost hoping that we would learn a bit more about what it was. I think a lot of people initially thought that this was the legacy program, the crash retrieval program. Turned out not to be, but it turned out that, it's still an unacknowledged special access program that's hidden away from oversight and accountability. It needed to be brought forward so that the Congress could really find out why are they collecting and quarantining such information, such data, such evidence of what's been happening when it comes to UFO videos, when it comes to satellite and imagery and sensor data. Why is it hidden in a special access program when it should be freely available on the top secret servers that people within all agencies and intelligence get to share because they have the right to see it? Why is it hidden away? And that's where the good stuff seems to be.
Had you ever heard of that program before you broke it?
No, I've heard of other programs, but not Immaculate Constellation.
And for the public, I'll release this. I hope you don't mind, but you and I, when that story broke, you and I were texting each other, trying to figure out what was going on. And one of the things I was able to find out from one of my sources was that Immaculate was the program. The sub-program was Constellation. So if you look up and say, hey, FOIA, I want something on Immaculate Constellation, it doesn't exist. It really doesn't exist. You had to go with the program Immaculate, the sub-program of Constellation. And that was a big learning step for me because I never really understood why they do that. Do you think then that Immaculate even exists right now? Or do you think the name has been changed and all the information has been scuttled under something else?
Yeah, I think it's more than likely been changed. They're very good at doing that. It's a good way of hiding things. You see the programs within programs, the old Inception style, or they just change them completely, or they shut them down and restart them somewhere else. It's just a way of keeping it away from prying eyes, in a very, very small compartmentalized gray area, or a purple nova, should I say. That's what we've learned, is that these are called purple nova programs.
That's new to me.
That's in Lou Elizondo's book, Imminent. He talks about, because I always called them gray programs. They're not quite in the black. They're not quite in the white. They're hidden in between with people from within government, the intelligence community, and private contractors. But it's known as a purple nova.
One of the things that impressed me about Schellenberger, and we don't see a lot of that in the real yellow journalism that we see today in the mainstream, was that he was pressed on numerous occasions about giving up his sources. And he stood tall on that and literally said on the record, I will go to jail before giving up my sources. To me, that showed, it gave me goosebumps, because when I was in broadcasting school going back 20 some years ago, one of the things we were taught as becoming journalists was, would you choose your source over jail time if you had to give one up? And, you could sit there and talk tough. Oh, I'd never give up my source. But he put it on the record, throw me in jail. You're not getting my source. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's journalism 101. You burn your sources, you might as well pack your bags and just leave. You won't get anywhere in a subject ever again if you burn a source. That's just common knowledge, I believe. So that was really impressive. And at the end of the day, it's you can have all the sources, but what they really need to focus on is the information that the sources are giving them. That's where they need to take that information and roll with it. That's where they'll go and find the answers. The sources not as important. I mean, they are. I'm not trying to diminish the importance of the source. I'm just saying, like, you can't expect someone just to give up the source. It's the same with people like Ross Coulthart as well, Christopher Sharp, who have got some very, very deep embedded sources within the IC and the DOD and elsewhere. You can't just give them up just to please a few curious minds, because it won't get us to the answers unless it's done properly.
And that's what we've tried to explain to our listeners, because they listen to a bunch of other podcasts just like we do, okay, because we're always paying attention. And you hear these podcasts, give up the source. We can't believe anything unless we get a name that we can focus on. And they don't seem to understand that if you give up that source, that route of information is not only going to seal shut forever. If you burn your source accidentally, or your source says, that source now could face jail time. They could face getting fired. They could face a lot of issues because you didn't keep your word. It goes back, say, if we go back to the old days of the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, when a handshake still meant something. That's what we're working on here, is there's an honor code with that.
Yeah. And when you come down to saying names and making things like that, common knowledge, that gives the gatekeepers time to hide things again. It's too much. You can't just expect that. It's not viable in the big picture. We're looking big picture here.
I know, and I was told this story by two different sources, that you take somebody like Jeremy Corbell, love him or hate him, he has a source so deep inside the government that they are actually hunting for this person, because this guy has given Jeremy information literally off of top secret databases that not even Lou Elizondo would have access to, or Jay Stratton would have access to. And this person is burning them from the inside to get this information out. And why they haven't pressed Jeremy for that information yet, I'm not sure, but it hasn't gone public on that yet.
No, it hasn't. And with anything like this, you only get one chance, and that's it. It's years of work just completely erased. So it has to be done.
Media members too, Vinny, and I'm sure you can attest to this, just for public knowledge. The majority of people, whether it's Ross Coulthart or Chris Sharp or Jeremy Corbell, they don't have hundreds of sources. They don't have 50 sources. They have a few key sources, like maybe under 10, that they rely everything on. They may talk to a bunch of other people and get information for stories, but their sources, most people only have 2 to 10 people.
Yeah, it's a network, isn't it? It's the top sort of, maybe the few, and then lower down you've got more that you talk to that maybe not quite give you the in-depth information that the top tier does. So yeah, there's got to be some sort of structure to that, and that's just to keep things from just going too far out. Because if you've got sources that are talking to hundreds of people, then how good is the information you're getting? I think these sources come to these journalists because they trust them. They want the information out. They know that the information's in good hands and that not a lot of people are going to mess with it. So,
We are through hour number 1 of Spaced Out Radio tonight with Vinnie Adams from the Disclosure Team YouTube channel and podcast. He's one of the best. I highly recommend all of our listeners out in Radio Land or social media go and hit subscribe and ring the bell on his channels, because it's a real even keel show with proper information that you're going to get. In hour 2, we're going to get to more on the hearings. Who would Vinnie like to have on his UFO hearing panel? Spaced Out Radio. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
Awesome.
All right, buddy. We got about 6 minutes here. I'm just going to put you in the green room. I'll be
Sure.
right back. Okay.
No problem.
All right. We'll be right back, everybody. All right, I'm back. Had to open up the window a little bit. A little too stuffy in the studio here. About a minute to go here. Starting to get that nice cool breeze at night before it gets cold.
Oh, we've got the cold here.
Oh, this isn't cold yet. That's coming.
Just saw a comment here. I just wanted to just mention here, Resonate, how you doing? He just says, Congress is the problem because they are funneling the money into these secret programs. It's actually the Department of Defense that funds special access programs. They have to get approval from the Secretary of Defense to say where the money goes that comes out of the annual budget. So Congress will always pay the required defense budget, and it's up to the people within DOD who decide ultimately where the money goes. And that's where the corruption really is. So I'm not saying there's no corruption in Congress. I don't know.
Let's get into that here in just a moment here. We got about 8 seconds. Thank you, Scott, T-Bone, Richard ×2, Area 53, Deb, Greg, and Joe for the super chats. Here we go. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. We're talking about yesterday's UFO hearings with Vinnie Adams from the popular podcast and YouTube channel Disclosure Team. I love having Vinnie here. His hair is always high and tight. Never a hair out of place. I don't know how you do it, Vin. I really don't. But we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Yes, the Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Halalimnik. Halalimnik is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Once again, we have our good friend Vinnie Adams from Disclosure Team YouTube channel and podcast. In my opinion, one of the best out there. And every time he comes on this show, we love the knowledge that he brings. And Vinnie, you're definitely not disappointing again tonight. So thank you very, very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm just glad to be able to be given a platform to talk. And it's not me hosting for once. I love it. Thank you.
One of the big issues that we saw in the hearings was the disappointment from all Congress people about funding. They were disappointed in Aero. They were disappointed in the Department of Defense. They were disappointed with, even though her name wasn't brought up, Susan Goff, and the way the Pentagon is handling this situation by trying to cancel people and cancel information. What was your thoughts when those questions were going on?
It was good that it was brought up. And I think what people need to understand is that, it's not Congress as a whole. It's broken down into so many committees and subcommittees and people with personal interests. Let's look at people like Mike Turner and Mike Rogers. We know that they're in the pocket of organizations like Lockheed Martin. So they're going to grant things or funding to go to certain programs and things like that, which some would say is corrupt. They're certainly not very likable or liked when it comes to the UFO subject, almost like they're gatekeeping and just letting the money talk. So, it's good that we have people who genuinely in Congress do want to get to the bottom of this. They want to stop the misappropriation of funds. Arrow, is almost but a lost cause. We had the latest annual report released today, which again was the same old nothing that we're very used to from them now. So I think the new director, John Kozlowski's got a lot of work to do if we're to take them seriously in the future. And we hopefully will find that out on Tuesday in the next Senate hearing.
I really liked the fact that they went hard on that and that they were able to get out from Elizondo and others that the private contractors are the ones who are really holding back the information. And as we've said on this show, and I know you've said on your show before, these private contractors are exempt from FOIA requests. They don't have to give out what they have, technologically speaking, whether they have crash retrievals, whether they have bits and pieces like arts parts or whatever it may be. The fact that General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin especially were called out, do you think that added a little fuel to the fire about where this information is being hidden?
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming Oop, some feedback, Ben. There we go. I think it's gone now. Yeah, I think it's become clear that there's a bit more. We came close to actually getting this information out of them back when Kona Blue was supposed to happen. It's been said that Lockheed Martin had almost but given up, and they wanted to take this material outside of their organization into a new group to see if they could get any further with it. It was allegedly going to be transferred to Robert Bigelow through the Kona Blue program, but it was stopped by CIA's Glenn Gaffney. That was the last time that we even had a chance of getting it out of the hands of these private contractors. And, they're the ones with the millions and billions of dollars in their pockets that they have no oversight. They can do what they want.
And with an unlimited paycheck.
Exactly. And then if they're paying members of, Congress like Turner's and Rogers to keep things happy between them, then, this is why we need to get to the bottom of this, and all of this illegality needs to be brought out and dealt with.
Do you think then the fact that some of these old school guys, like Mike Turner, Mike Rogers, who basically, Mike Turner especially, when you have one of the most secretive Air Force bases in your constituency, those people are voting for you because you're giving them everything that they want, both publicly and privately, that most people don't even know of, the side deals and the lobbying that goes on. We've seen Mike Turner in action when he shut down the Schumer Rounds amendment last year, and he was vocal about it the year before, and it looks like it's going to happen again because of him. Maybe this is the reason why, not to make this political, but from an outsider's perspective, I'm Canadian, you're from the UK, we have no skin in the game, that maybe, you look at what Trump might do in limiting term limits for congressmen or congresspeople and senators. So that way they're not there forever and being bought up by situations like this.
Something certainly needs to change to some degree. This has been happening for so many decades now because they've got away with it. They're going to think that they're going to keep getting away with it. Truth is, I don't think they are. I think they're really honing in on them, but they're going to put up a fight right till the end. And so, yeah, it might take something like Trump to change things up. That might affect other areas of Congress that have nothing to do with this subject in negative ways. So hopefully it won't come to that, but who knows? It may have to.
Well, we're going to see as this story continues. I'm curious regarding you, for instance, because last night we did a panel on this show, and I know the audience questions are building up, and we are going to get to audience questions here in just a little bit. Who would you have on your panel? What is your dream panel?
For a hearing, I would like to see people like James Lukatsky, Colin Kelleher, John Alexander, and then probably, high-ranking officials within the CIA. We've come to learn, I've got a list here just to help me out. We've learned that the CIA have been involved in crash retrievals, United States Special Operations Command, JSOC as well, people involved with that. You could break it down even further into the different directorates within the CIA. So some of these CIA heads, whether serving currently or in the previous couple of decades, who will have access to this information on the crash retrieval legacy programs, people like that we need to subpoena. People who generally have the answers, and when put under oath in front of Congress will have to give up the goods.
One person that I would like to see, if we're now opening it up to the media road and the researcher road, I would love to see John Greenwald up there.
Yeah, why not? John's no one's brought as much information out as John through the Freedom of Information. So yeah, absolutely.
I think he would be good. I'd like to see them call somebody like Robert Bigelow. Like Bigelow, he's getting close to 80 years old now. Yeah. But look, he was getting money for his time at Skinwalker. He was getting money from Bass at one point, and many people don't even know this. At one point, the FAA in the United States literally had in their pilot's handbook, which is in every Cessna and every airliner, that if you witness something anomalous in the sky, to call BASS, the Bigelow Advanced Aerospace Space Systems.
Yeah.
And that was in the FAA. Not many people know that. And he was the number one guy for well over a decade in researching this phenomena and had the political clout to do it. Why not call him?
Yeah, absolutely. Him, Lukatsky, Culliher, all of the kind of BASS employees of that era. Yeah, they're the guys, definitely. They'll name names. They'll be the ones who will be able to talk about the blocking from CIA and these other places. That's what needs to come out. And that's why I'm hoping this goes, now that the kind of line of questioning came through from David Grush last year to Lou Elizondo, Michael Schellenberger with Immaculate Constellation. It's starting to point in the right direction, getting to the special access legacy programs.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you on that one. Getting back to this panel, were you surprised that it took this long to get Lou Elizondo on the stand?
To be honest, I thought it would take longer.
Why?
I don't know. I just couldn't see it happening. I thought they were pulling in people from elsewhere, and people from like Grush and the witnesses, Graves and Fravor. I thought we'd see that, a little bit more of that before we finally got down to Lou. So it was an absolute pleasant surprise.
I thought he would have been on sooner. I really do thought. I really thought he would be on sooner regarding that. I mean, I was surprised though that he never said that he was ahead of ATIP during the hearing.
Would it really have made much difference to use the vernacular? I don't think so.
I disagree with you on that though, my friend, because that has been, and just hear me out on this for a second, because for the last 7 years, when he first came out with, the failed To the Stars Academy, that was his resume headliner. That's what we knew him as. And, I know there's been controversy lately, which I didn't really understand regarding his involvement, because he was very, very polite and cordial to Jay Stratton and James Lukatsky and others in his book. And all of those people just ripped him a new one. Eric Davis ripped him a new one after the book came out. So and even with claims that he never had anything to do with the program, according to Stratton's wife, there was a lot of shots over the bow leading into this.
Yeah, and it's at the end of the day, it doesn't take us any further down the line with regards to actually getting to where we want to be. I think it's just a lot of noise. I think if all of the information, the classified information on ORSAP and ATIP, what it was, what it wasn't, if all of that was in the public domain, I do think we'd be having a different conversation. And that's all I'll say on that.
I can understand that, and I can appreciate that. One final thing before we start bringing in some audience questions here. The lack of conversation about aliens, extraterrestrials, non-human intelligence, biologics, whatever you want to call them. The Congress tried to go down that road a few times, and Elizondo and Gallaudet especially really seemed to deflect those questions. Elizondo saying, I don't have permission to discuss those topics. Gallaudet really dodged the question. He did go as far as saying that he believed that this technology that we're seeing was not of this world. Of course, Schellenberger couldn't answer it because he was there for Immaculate Constellation, and Mike Gold was, counting how many light bulbs were in the chandeliers. I'm sorry, just wasn't a fan of his, so he's got to take a little bit of heat for that. But were you shocked or surprised that the NHI question wasn't answered at all?
No, I wasn't at all. Lou stated himself he's a nuts and bolts guy. That's where he came from, and I think Tim Gallaudet's of a similar vein. And I think it makes sense to me personally. We've got these objects. We need to know what they are. Once we find that out, if we find out they're not ours, then we can start asking, well, whose are they? Then we can start asking, well, what's the intent that these beings have. We've got to first find out what the craft are. What are the things that we're seeing? Now, some might say, well, what about all the experiencers who have, had interactions with a non-human intelligence? I get that. And I think that their time is due now as well. Now, whether that's in a public hearing, I don't know if that's the right situation. I don't really know. I think the focus needs to be on the craft initially. I think that's the direction that this journey that we've been going through since 2017 is taking us. Find out the craft, then we can ask whose they are, then we can ask why. What's their intent? That's just though. So,
but doesn't that also go against, like, Elizondo, in my opinion, was the only one who could talk about that. And the fact that you just said, Elizondo has always portrayed himself as a nuts and bolts guy until Immaculate, where we started getting into his woo. And I don't think he went an eighth of the direction into the woo that he has. I believe full on that the dude is an experiencer, full on experiencer. I know why he can't come out and say that, because immediately that takes away all credibility in many people's eyes. And we're not talking the UFO world here. Who cares about the UFO world? It's in the political world, in the military world, in the black ops world. The minute he goes down that road, his story is dead. And
I think there's always, sorry, I was just going to say, I think there's always a risk of opening up for too much speculation when you're in a setting like that, like a hearing. I think that would almost be a waste of the valuable time. Maybe that conversation's being had behind closed doors. We don't know.
Be interesting.
I can see it from both sides. I really can. I can see it from both angles.
Well, I get that. I would have liked to have seen him say something more than just, I can't answer that.
Sure. Yeah, maybe expand on it to some degree, whether it be this question about origin, extraterrestrial, crypto-terrestrial, interdimensional. Maybe go into that a little bit without going too far. I could have happened, maybe should have happened.
All right, let's get into some audience questions here. And thank you for an incredible breakdown on the hearing so far. I always like to include our audience here. We're going to start off with Sierra here, who is asking, Vinny, do you ever hang out with Dan from That UFO podcast?
Absolutely. Me and Dan are very good friends. We've spent 2 separate journeys to Colombia together to do some investigations. We don't get to see each other an awful lot. Dan lives in Wales. I'm in England. But, at opportunities at conferences in the UK, we always get together. We're both part of UAP Media UK. We speak all the time on the phone. We are going to be in London together in a couple of weeks, where we'll be meeting up with Lou and his family and a few other researchers. So that's going to be good. So yeah, Dan's a good guy.
I got to ask you this, kind of a sidebar question on this. You don't have to answer it if you don't want. I mean, it's not like, thousands of people are listening or whatever. What is Lou's affinity for the UK?
I think the first time we met him, he was like, his passion for the UK comes from watching documentary series on UK castles. And that's no lie. That's something he said that him and Jennifer sit down and watch. And so, come to visit London, and they always see the sights. They go to the Tower of London and do all the tourist things. And just, it's a spectacular city. It's a spectacular country, just steeped in history. And, that's kind of where it stemmed from,
Oh, I can understand that. And I can, but if I look, there's a back history to this where it seems like Lou, we'll call it the Lou crew, okay, has really backed off on a lot of journalists, podcast hosts, radio people here in North America, while he has been very, very close to yourself, Chris Sharp, Dan Zetterstrom, and many others from the UK. And for somebody who worked in the Pentagon and worked in IC and worked in all of this, that just seems a little strange to many people in the conversations of the UFO community. So you being somebody who is on that side of the water, I guess what I'm asking is, how did that happen? Was it just castles, or was it something more?
No, there's always more to it, but most people will think that Lou makes these connections to build like an army, let's say, of people that he can use to do things in the community, to sow seeds of doubt or things like that. I can say categorically, I've never been asked to do anything on behalf of Lou. The majority of times when I speak to Lou, which is quite a bit, a lot of the time we don't even talk about UFOs. The Lou crew, I mean, I hate that phrase, to me is just this group of people on Twitter who support Lou and argue about everything else. And a lot of them have never met or even spoken to Lou. I don't consider myself part of the Lou crew. I'm a friend of Lou's, a researcher in this community, a podcast host. I don't do anything on behalf of Lou. I support him, but that's as far as it goes. There's no secret thing going on. And I think people like to think there is because it's excitement and it's like this big thing that's happening. And it's really not. It's just drama for the sake of drama that's created, just like the mainstream media make things up. Unfortunately, that's kind of what's happening.
I appreciate you clearing that. I really do. I think that's great. Let's go to Polly. We got 3 minutes to go before we go to break at the bottom of the hour. Polly is asking, Vinnie, it's great to see you. I know we kind of asked this a little bit earlier. She goes, who would be the perfect hearing for you?
Okay, I'll kind of carry on from what I was saying. Let's bring people like Lakatsky. I'll take Robert Bigelow that you said, but let's bring in some experiences as well. Let's bring in your Whitley Strieber's and people like that. Hey, let's bring in Bob Lazar. Maybe we'll actually get to finally find out if he was actually telling the truth, because the way things are right now, I don't think we'll ever find out the truth of Bob's story. So let's bring people like Bob in as well.
I like the Bob Lazar one. I do.
There we go.
Do you think Congress would be ready for, say, Lazar and Whitley Strieber?
No, not yet. Unfortunately.
Oh, I don't think they would either. I have to side with you on that one. But, it also goes to show, though, Vinny, that, and it's funny, for years I'd been saying, and I even mentioned this to you last time you were on, that I believe that there's this Pandora's box inside the Pentagon that has all of the answers about who's being taken. Did Eisenhower really meet with aliens and trade humans for technology? Did Bob Lazar work at Area 51? What was the bell that hit Kecksburg? What was really the craft that went under the ocean at Shag Harbor? And did they actually see aliens working to fix that craft underwater? There's all of these secrets that we know and what we don't know. And it was funny because after we had you on one of his articles, I believe it was on Medium, Chris Mellon actually put out there that he believes that there is a UFO Pandora's box of information that is being hidden. I was like, holy cow, pat my own back, but I felt vindicated there for a second. Do you think, though, that with that Pandora's box, with these hearings, that it's even going to crack open, that we even have the combination to that? Will we ever have the combination?
Wow. And the optimistic me will always say maybe one day, but my goodness, that would have to be something really special to get that far in this lifetime. I hope so, but if that exists, who knows where it is? How do you even begin to look for something like that? I wouldn't even know.
And the worst part about it is there's somebody out there that none of us have ever heard of who's probably tucking himself or herself into bed right now that knows.
Yeah, and
they've seen it.
That's the kicker.
They've felt it. Oh my God, you've done that job. That would be awesome. Vinny, we have you for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio. More audience questions right after.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, Vin, we're clear.
Are you aware of the hearing coming up on Tuesday?
No, fill me in.
So November 19th at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time, the Committee on Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities to hold a closed hearings to examine the activities of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, to be immediately followed by an open session. So that's going to be another one to watch on Tuesday.
Oh my! I'll have to let Rob. This is what I hate about having a daytime job, man. Hate it. You know?
Yeah.
That's what sucks. Yeah, we'll figure that one out. We will figure that out. All right.
I'm hoping that is just John Kozlowski, the new Arrow director, just being sat down in front of, Gillibrand and crew, just like Sean Kirkpatrick was back in 2022, I think it was. Or was it early 2023? I forget when that session took place. So,
well, you know what? Kirkpatrick is I can't believe he's still being vilified.
I mean, he keeps kind of putting his foot in it. I think an email response came out today on he was completely shutting down Immaculate Constellation as a load of just made up baloney. I don't know how he can be so sure of himself to say things like that. But hey,
I don't know. Oh, damn it. I already got that one. Do you think, though, that on the inside there's, I got a text message from one of my sources today who literally was like, dude, the intel community is just laughing at what happened yesterday. Laughing. Do you think that that's really happening?
I could see why that might be said. Yeah. I think if there's people in the know, then I think they realize that we've still got a long way to go. And that's why it's so important that the right information is given in a skiff at this time. Don't wait any longer. So I can only hope that information was passed to the people that have the power to take it further.
Oh, I agree with you there, my man. Agree with you there. So are you actually going to bed after this, or are you going to ride it out at the right time?
No, straight to bed. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Get some sleep, my man.
Oh,
we're almost done. I promise you. We're almost done.
No, that's all good. I'm good. It's keeping me going.
This has definitely gone by very fast. And
it has.
Once again, my friend, I always appreciate the opportunity to get to chat with you and be on top of these topics, man.
Nah, it's always great. Really appreciate it, man. Still feels surreal to be on. I was following your show way before I even did anything in this community, so it's just awesome.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours and a subscriber of yours, man, and I mean it to our audience when I say, go follow Vinnie. Go follow Vinnie. Hi, Nicole Sakic.
Hey, Nicole.
Almost every day I get a phone call. And it's not hi, Dave. It's yoo-hoo.
Love it.
I love her. She's amazing. That's one thing, like we bitch and complain a lot about the UFO field. And you said this earlier, and it so stands true. The friends and the relationships that have been made because of this topic and the love of this topic are second to none, and the only shitty part about this all is that for the majority of us, we are so spread out and far away from each other rather than being able to sit down and go for a beer or go out for dinner or whatever, even attend a conference somewhere, and unfortunately that all costs, a lot of money just to say hello and everything. Right. So, but, and I would consider, Nicole, Grant Cameron to be right there in my top 5. They're definitely in my top 3, and Courtney Marcassani, another one. And, it just goes from there, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It outweighs any of the negativity, and we've all experienced the negativity. Being a forward-facing individual in this subject, you get the hate. It comes with the territory, and
You got
it's
that
just,
right.
it's just, I just blank it out because of all the positives in this.
Hold that thought. Here we go. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. It's always a pleasure to broadcast you live about the weird and strange topics and things that go bump in the night. Vinnie Adams is here until the top of the hour. We're going to take audience questions about the UFO hearings coming up. But first, we want to remind all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives because they're always free at YouTube or on any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Vinnie Adams from Disclosure Team YouTube channel and podcast, one of the best out there when it comes to the true stories of what is going on in the political UFO world. Vinnie, thank you so much. When do you download your shows so that way our audience knows when you're putting up new content?
I don't have a strict schedule. I always aim for, to release one show, one interview a week. Sometimes there may be two. So it's not like I do it on a Sunday at a set time. It's more around when I can get them recorded, when I've got time to edit them, and then release them a day or two later. So it's kind of a rough kind of schedule.
Just head to the YouTube channel. It's the easiest place.
There you go.
There you go. People are in for good stuff here. All right, let's go right to audience questions. This one from Sierra. Don't you think Lou Elizondo was there to promote his book? Gold was there to sell NASA, and Schellenberger was there to make himself prominent as well?
Good question. I don't think Lou mentioned his book once, as far as I'm aware. Gold was there to sell NASA. I mean, we kind of already said that looked a bit like that. Schellenberger was there to make himself prominent. Schellenberger's already prominent. He doesn't need the UFO world to be prominent. He's huge. He's doing all sorts of amazing things. He's traveling around the world regularly to talk about other aspects of, what's going on in the world. I think he was in Brazil a week ago. I mean, that guy doesn't need anything. So, no.
Schellenberger's actually a very big skeptic on this topic. I don't think people really realize that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was very clear. He has no idea what this represents. All he's doing is conveying information that he finds to be credible as a journalist. And when called to testify, sorry?
He did his job.
He did exactly his job. That's it. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less.
Paulie would like to know, Vinnie, do you think an experiencer's hearing is needed?
I mean, I think it would be really good to have experiences put into such a huge public forum to bring awareness to what's happened on the experiencer side of the conversation. I don't know. I've not really thought about what could members of Congress do to help experiences after the fact. How can they investigate individual cases like that? I don't know, but I certainly would be all for bringing experiences onto a massive public stage globally, something like the hearings that non-UFO people can watch and easily access. I think, yeah, definitely.
I don't think Congress is ready for that type of experience. They're playing nuts and bolts. They're playing that this is only happening. This is where I find a joke, and I think people like Ryan Graves have really narrowed this subject a little too much, that this is only happening on military installations and around nuclear facilities. And looking at a few Congress people's tweets after the hearing, they were shocked that this is happening, over sensitive areas, as it was put on one tweet. And I kind of mentioned out there, and I know others did as well, about, this is happening all over America and the world. This isn't just about Air Force bases, Army bases, nuclear power plants. This isn't about that. What was your thoughts on the fact that they concentrated it all on military facilities and nuclear power?
I mean, national security has to be kind of number one when it comes to Congress, who are tasked to oversee the DOD and the Pentagon and things like that. That's no surprise. So that's straightforward to me. I do want to quickly mention, it seems that people in the chat have said that Lou did mention his book. I still stand by my answer that he wasn't there to sell a book. He was there as an American patriot, someone who served his country, who was asked to testify under oath in front of Congress to the best of his knowledge. I think that's why he was there. And that's just my opinion.
I would agree with you on that. I don't think his intent there was to sell the book at all. I really don't.
He didn't even mention the book when he was on Joe Rogan. He purposely said, I'm not here to sell the book because I'm here because the information is more important, So.
Fully agree. Fully agree with you on that one. Let us move on here. Let's go to T-Bone. Vinny, what part of disclosure will Trump play?
Great question. I mean, we've had people talking about, Trump could just release the Roswell files. Yeah, that would be all good and well. I would like to see Trump appoint a UAP czar, one person at the head of everything who can just get stuff done without all the compartmentalization. You haven't got Arrow over here. You haven't got, military branches like the Air Force doing things over here. We've got one guy sitting right at the top in the executive branch who just has all the power to kind of go where they need to go to get this information. That would be great.
I do need to ask you something about, and it triggered me when you said hire a UFO czar or UAP czar for the government. I agree with you. I think it would be great. Mike Gold, in his infinite wisdom, and I'm not saying the guy's a dummy, because he's not. You don't get to those positions being an airhead.
Yeah.
Okay. Some of the comments that he made, like this one, really puzzled me. And I don't know if you caught it either, when he said that there are no real good UAP reporting sites or UFO reporting sites out there, and people should be sending their information to NASA regarding this. I looked at that point and I thought, are you naive, or are you just, belting out the greatness of NASA here? Because between MUFON, Newfork, the old APRO files, CUFOs, and dozens of others, except Enigma Labs, other show of other reporting sites, there are hundreds of thousands of reports. And for you to say that there are no credible reporting sites out there is a real slap or an ignorance to the UFO community, who's been working on this for 60 years. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, put it down to pure ignorance. He just does not know about these other organizations. Simple as that. And I think if he suddenly realized that now, then he'd realize that he probably should have had a look at things like that before blurting something like that out. It's disappointing.
Wiruna from Australia is asking, what is a White House special access program?
I suppose a White House special access program is probably no different from any other special access program, but its oversight is more from the executive branch than sort of the DOD Pentagon side of things. That's all the only difference I could see.
Let's head over to Android. What are your thoughts, Vinny, on the new Arrow report being released one day after the UFO hearing, and states some defy physics as they know it? Kozlowski tipping his hat at us?
It would be easy to say that it's suspect timing, but we've been waiting for this report for a while. It's been due. So, yeah, maybe they're trying to divert some attention away from the hearing, but I don't think that's the case. It is a public version of a much more detailed, classified, I imagine, report. So It was good to see that there are cases still unresolved that they're looking into. They didn't go into too much detail. Time will tell. I think John Kozlowski has got an opportunity here. He really needs to grasp it with both hands and make something of it and not become another Sean Kirkpatrick. But we shall see.
A lot of people are concerned about that. He is going to be another Sean Kirkpatrick with just a better beard and hair combination. You know, are we frying Kirkpatrick because we just don't like him, or was he just the wrong guy for the right position?
Yeah, I think that's more the case. I don't dislike Sean Kirkpatrick. I was very aware of him before he had his role in Arrow. I've got friends who work directly with him in Space Command, very good friends in Space Command. So I was very aware of Sean Kirkpatrick. He's got an immaculate record, done great work for the government. So, you know, I think with Arrow, wrong guy for the wrong job. Yeah, absolutely. Makes more sense. He doesn't need vilifying any further. He doesn't help himself with the way he says things, but at the end of the day, he's out now. So let's move past it.
You know, it's funny. He reminds me of an old radio boss I had when I worked in sports. Sports radio was the funnest career I ever had. You know, whether it was going to games and practices, talking to the athletes, even playing free golf anywhere I wanted.
Oof,
just because
nice.
of the business card that I had. And yet my boss at the time was the most miserable curmudgeon you could ever expect. And I look at Sean Kirkpatrick in that same regard, that he had the dream job that you would love, I would love, anybody in the UFO community would love to take that job. We'd do it for $1, never mind a 6-figure government salary plus a 401k. We would do it for $1. Probably some of us would pay them to have that job. And he just seemed to hate it from the beginning. Like he wanted nothing to it, like it was a demotion, like he was being punished because he didn't finish his full plate of food.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can understand his early frustrations. He was brought into the program, very few, understaffed. He only had Title 10 authorities. He didn't have Title 50 authorities, which didn't give him access to everything across the intelligence community. More so, he was only kind of given access to military branch records. So he did get Title 50 authorities eventually, but I think it might have been a bit too late. You know, he says now, if this was talking about maybe a crash retrieval program, if this existed, I would have had access to it. I don't believe that for a second. These things are sitting so far out of oversight and legal frameworks that he just wouldn't have had access, even though in theory under Title 50, he should have had access to everything within the IC. So I think that's where the problems comes in with it.
Let's go to another question here from our audience. Let's go to let's say Polly here. All the witnesses denied the fact of hybrids. What was your opinion on that?
I mean, it's probably highly likely that they genuinely don't have that information. I think that's probably it. Or if they do, then that's the kind of conversation that will have to happen behind closed doors, because if anyone has knowledge of hybrids being true, that is going to be some of the most highly classified information in the world.
Were you surprised that I believe it was Lauren Boebert who brought that up?
I think it was Representative Luna.
Luna, yes. Sorry.
I was very surprised. Very surprised, yeah.
The idea that she got that from talking to somebody on the inside, that this is something they're discussing, that blew me away. Her, if you get a chance, anybody out there, to go re-listen to those, listen to that question, because she emphatically states that somebody on the inside in conversation told her about a hybridization program and human hybrids. I was stunned that got brought up.
I think what we need to understand, though, is that within these shared intelligence servers and networks, that there are groups within those networks where they'll have a UFO group, almost like a UAP appreciation group, where things are talked about how we talk about things, but it's done between people who have clearances on a server that's, you know, got classified information. So yeah, I think it would be very easy for information to leak in and muddy the waters a little bit, unfortunately. So maybe that's where it came from. We just don't know.
We'll never know.
Yep.
Polly is asking, where do you draw the line between the info you get and what you disclose?
That's a really good question. It's very difficult. The only information that I will disclose is information, if I've been given it from somebody else, is that, one, I'm allowed to give it out, because I will certainly not put out anything that I've been asked not to put out. And if I put something out, then, and I'm not 100% sure about it, I will make sure I say that. Look, here's some information. I don't know if it's true. Make your own minds up and do what you will with it. I mean, I don't think that's happened really that often, but that's how I would deal with something like that. It's, you know, for the sake of credibility.
I let every person that I talk to, the first thing I let them know is that this conversation is off the record. If I'm searching for information, the first thing I do is I give them the respect, saying this conversation is off the record. Absolutely. And then as the conversation goes on, I will say, is that something I could quote you on? Is that something I could say? If I'm interviewing you, Vinnie, I would say, hey, Vinnie, you know, you just said something really profound. Can I use that? But I'll keep your name out of it. Right. And that way I'm protecting the source. And 9 times out of 10, I'll get, yeah, you can use that. Just don't tag my name to it.
Sure. Yeah. Understandable. That's again, there's a right and a wrong way, and that's how it should be. Otherwise you're going to risk losing, you know, if somebody sees you divulging something that you shouldn't, then why would anyone ever come to you again with any kind of trust?
Let's go to T-Bone. Vinnie, what do you think it will take to get more interest of UFOs in the UK government?
I mean, the interest is definitely there. I think we know that. But the problem, I think what he means is get the government to talk about it maybe more freely in a public domain like the US are. I think it will take the US taking this further still to the point where the UK have no choice but to start talking about it. I mean, look at the Five Eyes meetings. We know they're happening. We know members of the UK Ministry of Defence were at the Five Eyes meeting with Arrow last year. 2 members of the MOD were there. It's going to have to happen eventually, and I think it will.
I would love to see it happen. I think it's important that the UK, as the, you know, the second biggest power in the Western civilization behind the United States, not like Canada where we're like 49th or something like that, right? But I think it's important for the UK to get on that conversation. And I wish the stuffy politicians over there would realize that this is a UK issue. This is something, but I believe the one thing, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, as being part of the Commonwealth as well, is loyalty means more than information publicly.
Yeah, for sure. Without a doubt.
Chill Farm wants to know, what have you heard about the Five Eyes? Any update from the Pentagon meeting over a year ago?
Nothing at all. No, I mean, people are still putting in requests through Freedom of Information over here. We get the same boilerplate responses. There is nothing we can do. And sources over here from within MOD are few and far between.
What is the reputation of Nick Pope over there?
Nick's got a good reputation in the UK. Yeah. You know, I think I've had my run-ins with Nick. I'll go into it a little bit if you want. I've been lucky enough to have sources within defense intelligence here in the UK that worked the UFO program back in the day, when in the 80s and the 90s. So when Nick Pope was at the UFO desk, he didn't run any UFO programs because defense intelligence, the ones with the higher classification and clearances were the ones that did the work. Nick was kind of the middleman, let's say. No offense there to Nick. I think, that's become quite clear. And I've had some run-ins with Nick about that. We kind of made up, we're friends and stuff now. We're cordial. But, that's what it comes down to. Defense Intelligence, DI-55 ran the UFO project from the 60s.
The only thing I worry about Nick Pope, outside of, I wish with his knowledge, he would actually, when he is interviewed as an insider, would stop using other people's information and just repeat it. Nick, you're a smart guy. Okay. Yes, we'd be afraid for your hair around Velcro. Okay. But you're a smart guy. You have your own thoughts. That's why they're paying you a lot of money to do this as a headliner of information for Fox News or CNN or News Nation or whoever it is. Give us some information. Don't tell us what Elizondo said. Don't tell us what Lakatsky said. Don't tell us if you're an inside source, give us the goods. It's kind of like watching over in North America NFL football, and you're listening to Adam Schefter talk about pick a team, the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's telling you everything that Patrick Mahomes just said or Travis Kelce just said, in their 15-second interview at halftime. Like, come on, give us something. That's my opinion. All right. We got time for about one more here. Let's go to Polly. Vinny, did you expect more info from Tim Gallaudet concerning the Galileo project?
No, I think it was right that they focused more on his work as Rear Admiral in the Navy and, his work with NOAA. I think that was the most important thing to get out. I think anything from Galileo should always really go through Avi Loeb. And, information was released this week from Avi Loeb. I think people need to go and check out his articles. They have released some information about some detections that they've had. I'm going to be speaking with Avi this weekend. So I think there'll be some information coming out. Well, it's out, but I think I'm going to get to the bottom of it a bit more in detail.
Speaking of Galileo, another big group, Seoul Conference, is coming up here in just a week or so's time in Stanford University in California. I know Nicole Sakic is going to be going with a few others as well to take that in. My question to you with 90 seconds to go, are there too many of these groups now, too many of these foundations, too many of these projects? My concern is it's all the same people in every group.
I don't think there's never too many. I don't think it's more eyes on the subject, more people trying to do something with it. I mean, if you see a lot of these groups crop up and people start worrying that they're just in it for the money, then they'll fail. They'll fail what they're doing. So I think it's a good thing.
Vinny, I want to say a big thank you again for coming on Spaced Out Radio, my man.
Thank you.
You are a great source, a great friend of information, a great ambassador for the community, and don't ever let anybody tell you differently. That's for sure, my man.
Thank you so much, Dave. Always a pleasure. Really appreciate it. Great audience, great questions, great conversation.
Do me a favor before we say goodnight to you. Take about 30 seconds and tell everybody where they can find your show, your YouTube channel, and more information of you on social media. Yeah,
just go over to YouTube. It's Disclosure Team. It's a very familiar black and white logo. You can kind of see it here. You can't miss it. If you want to follow me over on X, you can. It's Disclosure Team. It's all lowercase Disclosure Team and then an underscore. Over on Instagram, it's Disclosure_Team. Go and follow me there. Be great to see you.
You love your underscores.
These names have been taken before.
Vinny, you're a good friend. Thank you very much. Thank you for staying up late. I know it's early for you over in the UK right now, but our audience really appreciates your time. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, Swamp Dweller with a short story, Tim James with the UFO report, Dave 101 night, and the weird news of the week. A busy third hour next.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Buddy, thank you so much. That was amazing.
No
Absolutely.
worries. Thank you.
You were great.
Speak to you soon.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye. Vinnie Adams, everybody. Fantastic dude. Great dude. I will be right back. Well, little Timmy James has joined us. Just having a little nose pick there.
What is up?
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Long day.
It has been a long day. R2D2, how you doing? Beep, beep, boop. Eva, nice to see you. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Great show. Vinnie is
very good. For sure.
just great.
Busy day for you.
Oh, it's always busy. Mr.
Oh,
Cowley, how you doing, buddy? Running around like a chicken with my head cut off again.
Yeah. Me too. That construction's just. Yep.
We got to do this full time.
Yeah.
We got to figure out a way to do this full time.
I know. I think we'll start a GoFundMe. GoFund Dave and Tim.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Big thank you. Hi, Dan Beard. How you doing? We'll get on with it in a minute. Your first ever comment. Nice sarcasm. I like that. Get on with it. Get off the lawn. Scott, T-Bone, Richard ×2, Area 53, Deb, Greg, Joe, Chill Farm, and T-Bone again. And now Search and Destroy. Thank you for the lovely super chats. We greatly appreciate it. Here comes hour 3. Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. This is the final hour of tonight's show, which includes Swamp Dweller, Tim James coming up momentarily, and much, much more. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Halolimnic is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. And on that note, let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. Right now, we're on our way to Alabama. I know it's been a few weeks since I've done another state, and I apologize for that. But I'm back, and now we're about to knock out another one. Alabama's a state full of mysteries, and apparently, sightings of strange and unexplainable things. Welcome back to the swamp, my friends, and welcome if you're new. Today I'm going to be sharing some creepy and allegedly true Alabama horror stories sent in by viewers just like you. As always, if you have a story that you would like to share, be sure to submit it at swampdweller.net or the email you can find in the description down below. I would love to share your story with everyone here in the swamp. Before we jump right into these stories, though, I just have to take a second to remind.
I recorded the wrong one.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, that's a rookie mistake right there.
That's okay.
I cut the wrong one. I had 2 on there, and I cut the wrong one out. Oh, my God. Sorry, Swampy. Oh, man. We'll get to Swamp Dweller tomorrow night. Tim, hold on. Let me play your theme music here.
Okie dokie.
That is an interplanetary flying space saucer. You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
All right, Tim James in the UFO report. After I butchered Swamp Dweller like that, I feel bad. What do you do?
Exactly.
The beauty of live radio, man, when you can make mistakes, you got to roll with it. You just can't change it back. You just got to make it happen. So I got to ask you, had a day to breathe on it, chew on it, stew on it.
Yeah.
Looking back at the UFO report, what do you think, Tim?
Man, it just I think everybody's still in a little bit of a hangover. Everything that I've been seeing and reading and going through is just like, okay, yeah. And lots of opinion. And I think what I'm seeing is everybody's pretty much even keel on it. I mean, nobody's really giving it the thumbs down and nobody's jumping for joy over it. But there seems to be people looking at positives in it, you know. I know that
I know that
Nancy Mace was still going a little cuckoo today, or well, lack of a better, not wasn't going cuckoo, but she was still kicking out the tweets, man. And there was one quote from NBC. She was on NBC this morning or this afternoon, and it was the American people voted for the truth. They are tired of being lied to. And then she tweeted, "This is about our national security, transparency, and accountability of taxpayer dollars. Why does the federal government think it's okay to hide the truth from the American people?" And then the other one, the third quote that she put out today on her Twitter account: "If crash retrieval programs don't exist, why are we compensating government employees for injuries from alleged crashed craft?" I was like, wow, she's still flying along with it. So yeah, I was like, okay, but yeah, um, basically everything else. What I did find, and it was kind of buried in the basement here. I'm just trying to find where I put this article. Is yeah, that when Courtney was talking last night about um, the papers or the Immaculate Constellation paper she was given. Have you heard the rumor about that?
No, fill me in.
Oh, gosh. So there was a little article, like I said, found it in kind of like the basement of a tweet, and there was quite a few retweets of it. So it said, "Did Congresswoman Nancy Mace and journalist Michael Schellenberger misrepresent UFO evidence presented to Congress? At the UFO hearing, Mace presented a document from the Pentagon that she says she got from Schellenberg. But several witnesses say that's not true. They instead claim that the UFO celebrity Jeremy Corbell pulled a document from his backpack. Corbell handed this dubious document, which has a cover letter written and signed by Corbell, to a congressional aide. During the hearing, Mace presented the document without Corbell's signed cover letter and says it's from the Pentagon and that she got it from the journalist Michael Schellenberg. Corbell felt jilted and confronted Mace after the hearing and apparently seeking recognition. And there's a whole bunch of links to these everywhere all over the place. Schellenberger tweets the document saying it came from a whistleblower and released today by Nancy Mace. The tweet currently has over 2 million views. So UFO advocates tweeted Corbell's missing cover letter and can't figure out, how many red flags are being thrown up. And I know that Courtney last night when we were on had mentioned that a few times. She was like, I think this is going to come and fall into, question. And I think Science Bob had mentioned a few things about it too, that he was uncertain of its legitimacy. So stumbling across this today was kind of like, okay, so maybe this is where the snowball, like you quoted earlier, starts rolling down the hill.
This is really get off my lawn kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. I mean, as someone who has been burnt on stories in this,
Mm-hmm.
I feel for if that is true that Jeremy Corbell did hand it out, I can understand that. We got burnt a number of years ago on the Wilson Davis story that was supposed to break on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And the late Michael W. Hall, God rest his soul, he promised our listeners they were going to break, him and Grant Cameron were going to break this story. And I sat on that story for 3-4 months before all of a sudden, Hall went a little loopy and went on a bunch of other different shows before even coming on ours. And he's like, "Oh, I'll do Spaced Out Radio." And I said, "No, dude, it's too late. It's too late." And to this day, because of that, we've never talked about Wilson Davis on this show.
Uh-huh.
We've touched on it, but we've never had the deep dive on Wilson Davis because I absolutely refuse.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. And I've heard that story too. Yeah. So I don't blame you. So yeah, I was just kind of like, oh, here we go. Courtney called it out, and so did Science Bob. So I was like, we'll see how much more this rolls. But I was just interested, like over 2 million views, and it was shared all over the place. So, I mean, so's like anything, if it's I guess derogatory, or if it's contentious, a lot of people jump on that sort of stuff. So I'm just reporting what I'm reading. I'm not not stating anything's true or false on this. So the other thing, sorry, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Oh, the other thing is that I, again, last night, after talking and, listening and being part of the roundtable, I had Carl Nell, obviously a retired Army officer and a key figure in recent UAP disclosure efforts, was actually scheduled to testify at both upcoming House Oversight Committee public hearings on UAPs. But in a sudden twist, Colonel Nell was withdrawn from testifying without an explanation. Colonel Nell, who previously served alongside whistleblower David Grush and has been vocal on the need for transparency, was expected to provide critical insight into alleged UAP retrieval programs. His abrupt withdrawal raised questions. Was it due to pressure from above, or is this where more behind the scenes stuff going on? So there's the answer. He was supposed to be there, or he was slotted in there as one of them, but yeah, he was pulled out, not by his own choice, apparently.
Well, he couldn't have done much worse than Mike Gold.
Right. I like that. How many lights we got in the chandelier? Yeah, I get it. Completely. So
listening to that when I say that.
Oh my goodness. So the other thing that I ran across too, just these are all small little blips. So they all had to do with yesterday. And I think that your guest, touched on this earlier that the Congress UFO update that the Senate Armed Service Committee posted notice today of a closed hearing followed by an open hearing on November 19th to examine the activities of AARO in Emerging Threats and Capabilities Subcommittee, and this is going to be chaired by Senator Kristen Gillibrand. So there's another little tidbit.
Cover that. That's for sure.
Yeah, will be interesting for sure. And then what else have we got going on? John Kozlowski from AARO. So as they continue to investigate and resolve a growing caseload of hundreds of reports from current and former government officials about encounters with unidentified UFOs, personnel in the Pentagon's AARO are also launching new projects and resources to declassify materials, promote transparency, and enhance collection capabilities. The office's new director, John Kozlowski, detailed those and other updates during an off-camera press briefing at the Pentagon on Thursday, marking his first open engagement with reporters in this capacity since he assumed the role in August. AARO has taken meaningful steps to improve data collection and retention, bolster sensor development, effectively triage UAP reports, and reduce the stigma of reporting a UAP event. In the coming year, AARO will prioritize building partnerships, promoting increasing transparency, and scaling up the work of the office, Kozlowski said. In his opening statement before taking reporters' questions, Kozlowski confirmed that his team briefed congressional staff this week and delivered the previously mandated fiscal 2024 consolidated annual report on UAP. And it is available online. I actually printed it out today and was reading it on my lunch break, and all these charts and graphs. And there's lots of birds and balloons and weather phenomenon and all these pie charts. And it was like, okay. And I think 2% or something like that were unidentified or pushed to the side. So the newly released almost 20-page document includes explanations and multiple graphics to display officials' database findings and notable trends of these potential anomalies that could threaten U.S. national security. Kozlowski said AARO has received over 1,600 UFO reports to date. Included in those are the 757 new reports that were submitted between May of 2023 and June of 2024, the time period that this analysis covers. Arrow has successfully resolved hundreds of cases in its holdings to commonplace objects such as balloons, birds, drones, satellites, and aircraft. Meanwhile, over 900 reports lack sufficient scientific data for analysis and are retained in our active archive. So they'll be keeping them there. The cases aren't closed. They're still open, but they're on the back burner. So we'll see what happens with that too. I don't know what that's going to be like.
Well, hopefully he keeps an open mind and tries to actually take advantage of his position by getting this information out and does the polar opposite of Sean Kirkpatrick. You know, I mean, Kirkpatrick reminds me of Eeyore, the donkey.
Yeah.
Just every day is raining.
Mhm.
Every day is depressing. Every day he has to take another breath, and that just pisses him off.
Yeah, I and you know the other thing that my other take on him too, and it's not. I've run it. He's one of those people for me that he may not be a bad guy. You know, he may not be like what we perceive him as, but there's just some people that you just can't get warmed up enough to I guess like him or whatever. I just find it very difficult when I see his picture in an article or whatever, and I just kind of go, oh. And he just got that. I don't know, just my take on him. I just don't. I'm not a fan, but he may be a good guy. I don't know. I have no idea. So, like I say, we'll see, and hopefully that'll be good. And then maybe you and I'll have to take the day off for those hearings and sit around and suck that all in.
Right? We'll have to see. Did you see Logan Paul today on X?
I didn't. I was ripping through some stuff, and he's kind of, I don't know. I've been kind of scanning over him, but not a guy that I think he's probably got about as much experience in this stuff as I do. So, and he comes off like he's an expert. So,
well, here's the thing,
Mm.
and I think it's important to bring this up a little bit.
Mhm.
Everybody is waiting for mainstream media to pick this story up, myself included, where we've been disappointed outside of News Nation.
Right.
We've been disappointed with the coverage that this story has got. And one thing that even kind of threw my mind a little bit, and I really noticed it, especially during the U.S. election, was the power of influencers.
Mm.
Okay.
True.
You know, there's a story going around that Trump was influenced by his children to skip interviews with mainstream media by choosing to go on podcasts that have tens of millions of listeners, whether
Yeah.
it was Joe Rogan or Theo Vaughn or other podcasters out there. Now, Logan Paul has millions upon millions of followers
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube, on X, on other social media platforms. You know, he's one of the original big time influencers. At one point, I believe he was one of the top people who had the most subscribers on YouTube until channels like Mr. Beast and PewDiePie really started taking off.
Right.
And really building an entire generation on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And with Logan Paul, him getting into this, there's one thing I really like about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is we see him opening up a lot of that 35 and under crowd who may not be familiar with this story, and he is now bringing it to the table. So his tweet today says, "I'm deeply invested in the latest UFO UAP disclosure Congress. The question is no longer, are we alone? The question is, who else is here and why? It's undeniable that there is intelligence on Earth far more advanced than humans, which should be alarming considering we are no longer at the top of the food chain. The reported UFOs defy known laws of physics. travel through air at hypersonic velocity, capable of transmedium travel, seamlessly moving between space, Earth's atmosphere, and water. He used a swear word in there. And then he put in brackets, USOs equals unidentified submerged objects. Oh, and with no identifiable means of propulsion. They tease our naval aircraft, stalking and observing us like prey, particularly around military bases, seemingly monitoring us to see what we are capable of. According to whistleblowers, the government has a crash retrieval program aimed at reverse engineering this technology. They've collected non-human biologics and have had definitive nonverbal communication with these enigmatic crafts. This branch of the U.S. government has allegedly operated with minimal congressional oversight for decades. I can't help but wonder, how long have they been here? What are they? What do they know about the origin of the universe, the fabric of reality, God? I'm deeply entranced by all of it and can't wait for more whistleblowers to come forward. If you are as into this as me, I highly suggest you watch George Knapp's Investigation Alien on Netflix. Now, one of the things that I like about this is that he is getting it out there.
Right.
But the danger that we have from a UFO community aspect of it all, in my opinion, is he's going by what he has seen on the news. He hasn't investigated this story, so he's not yet too invested in it. But then again, a lot of the 2017s, and I love that term, and I've stole it from Nicole Sakic, a lot of the 2017s, which is when the New York Times article came out, and really the birth of new ufology, or ufology, if you want to use a UAP term, they are more interested in what the government knows. They're not interested in the people with experiences. They aren't interested in the eyewitness testimony. They aren't interested in a lot of the happenings that happen. We keep getting this dialogue that this is only happening over military installations, over nuclear power facilities, and other sensitive areas, without realizing that there are sightings right across the United States, from Washington to Miami, okay, and every city, town, forestry camp, mountain, river in between. And it's not just the United States, it's right around the world.
Yeah.
And when these influencers like Logan Paul start opening up to the idea that there is something more to this than just what the government tells us, then the influencer will become almighty and powerful. And that's what I'm waiting for. That's what I want to see. Now, I doubt Logan Paul listens to this show, but if he does, that would be my big thing, is open your mind up. And I'm not saying that as an insult. You're doing great. I think it's great that you put it out there to your millions of followers, but take the time to open up and learn that there is way more to this story than a threat narrative put on by the military industrial complex and the people who want to cash in on that.
Definitely. And in addressing that too, with these influencers and everybody on YouTube and these independent journalists and stuff, I think what you're seeing too is these young people being drawn, open-minded, and trying to find the truth, and people that aren't afraid to actually report what's happening instead of picking a side and sensationalizing that side, so to speak. And that's a good thing. And I think that's a good thing.
I do too. My friend, it is that time where we got to say goodnight to you.
All right, buddy.
You'll hear from me this weekend.
Yes.
That's for sure.
We're
going hunting.
All right, Sunday.
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 Tim James of the UFO Report. You'll hear from him next week. I'll hear from him on the weekend. Coming up next, the Dave 101 and the Weird News of the Week. We'll be right back, everybody.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, there we go.
Right on, right on. Okay, buddy. I'm going to actually probably lay on the couch and watch Dave 101 and then fall asleep.
Yeah, I wish I could do that.
Do you, though?
I would. I had the worst sleep ever last night, dude.
Me too. Me too.
It's like because as everybody knows, I sleep with a CPAP machine now,
right.
and it was like I wasn't getting air through last night.
Ooh.
So I kept on gasping and coughing all night. And it's like, okay, no, I'm not sick,
Mm.
you know. Then I'd have to open my mouth up to see if there was actually air coming in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, I don't know what it was either. I think it was the moon. Normally when close to a full moon or whatever, I had really tough time sleeping. And my ears were just ringing last night. So
Oh man. And then I scared myself last night.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I get really, really bad anxiety about, and a lot of people say, oh, don't worry about it. But it's just, I've been like this since I was like 17, 18 years old when I noticed it. But I was listening to a documentary about John Teeter, time traveler. And thank you, Deborah Rooney, for the hat trick.
Deb.
Yeah, she haunts us. And they brought up the fact that John Teeter came back from 2036. And I'm like, okay, this is 2024. In 2036, I'm going to be like 62 years old, 63 years old, 64. And I started panicking over that.
Oh.
And all of a sudden it's like, you're getting closer to death, man. You're getting closer to death. And it scared me. And I started having a panic attack over it.
Yeah.
Right. And so between that and not being able to breathe out of my in for my nose. Oh my God.
Am I going to make it to 2036?
Oh,
damn.
I'm hoping.
Oh yeah.
I want 2050. I want to get halfway through.
No. I'm not putting a date on it.
Maybe 2060. That would be fun.
Yeah. I'll be 94. Yeah, that'd be perfect. All righty. All right, everybody. I'm checking out. Have a good evening. We'll see you next week. And we'll talk to you probably tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, man. See you later. Right.
See you, buddy.
Ciao.
Tim James, everybody. Jocko Flacco, how you doing? Blowing bubbles. I've never tried that. Thank you, Kimberly. Where's your partner in crime tonight, Kim? I'm putting together my Dave 101 in my head. Reminder of all of you, or to all of you, that next year, mark May 1st to 4th on your calendar. It's the Merle and Dave show in Vegas. We're heading there. We're heading to hang out, party. There will be no radio show. It's just a hangout session. We're thinking of doing a ghost hunt somewhere and then driving out to Rachel, Nevada. So if you want to come, you can come. If you don't, you don't. But that's where Merle and I will be May 1st to 4th, 2025. It will be fun, they say. You will enjoy it, they say. Oh, hell yeah. Totally going to enjoy it. Comes the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. The Dave 101 and the weird news of the week right around the corner. My name is Dave Scott. I love bringing this show to you each and every night. Man, I love bringing the weird and strange just to open up your new paradigms to all the weird stuff that is happening on this planet all around us. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here's the Dave 101.
Open up the door, it's Dave! Who? Dave, D-A-V-E! What is this?
Dave's not here!
It's the Dave 101.
I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
Leave the killer out! Yeah! Leave the killer!
Dave's a mess.
As someone who took in the UFO hearings and really was constructively trying to find something positive, considering the ones previous have been nothing more of a dog's breakfast for information and moving the ball closer to disclosure. Whether it was horrible questions from Congress people or just the wrong witnesses outside of David Grush in the past, I did not hold much hope for what we were about to see. And let me tell you, as someone who's been critical of this process very publicly, I was very pleasantly surprised. I was so happy with the questions that were asked. They were hard questions. They were pointed questions and directed questions. Everything from crash retrieval programs, non-biologics, government cover-ups, private sector cover-ups to hybridization programs. Yes, Congress did a great job at trying to deliver the pointed questions that we had been waiting for in this UFO hearing. The disappointment for me came from the witnesses. Now, outside of Michael Schellenberger, the journalist who broke the Immaculate Constellation story, this was a time where Lou Elizondo, Tim Gallaudet, and an unknown named Mike Gold were supposed to shine. I don't think either three of them, outside of little snippets, really did that. Start off with Michael Gold. Don't even know why he was there. He brought nothing to the table except trying to promote NASA and their cover-up, even though NASA has been one of the worst, in my opinion, the worst groups to cover up this story. And yet he had the gall and the audacity to sit there and say that he believes NASA is one of the most transparent groups in the United States government. I think we're looking at two different NASAs here when it comes to UFOs. 100%. Tim Gallaudet was not exciting at all. Yes, he got into USOs. Yes, he said he believes that these are of not an earthly presence. He tried to dip his toe into the pool, and it was like his pinky toe was way too cold and pulled out just as quick. He had no emotion in his voice. He had no desperation in his voice. It really wasn't something that I expected from him. I was so looking forward to what Tim Gallaudet had to say, because there isn't a lot of interviews that he has done. Yes, we've seen him make statements, but I wanted to get a feel for the dude, and I just couldn't do that. Lou Elizondo looked nervous to me. It looked like he was uncomfortable with a lot of the questions, and a lot of times that will be nervousness. Nervousness because sometimes when you step onto the biggest stage of your career, and in his, when it comes to UFOs, it will be being interviewed by Congress, even though he says that he has briefed presidents on this subject. This is on the record, not behind closed doors. This was for all the American and world public to see. And I think Lou struggled. I don't think he meant to, but he did. I think he wanted to get into a skiff a little bit too often. A skiff is a private soundproof room where you could talk about private information without it being leaked to the public or spied upon. He wanted to give up the information. You could tell he was giving up the information, but a number of times he stated that due to his contract that he signed with the U.S. government, which also led to his book Imminent, that he could not talk on certain topics, including NHIs and crash retrieval programs. They had a time to shine. Congress, in my opinion, was the ones who shone the brightest. Yes, we got snippets from Elizondo. I thought it was great when he mentioned things like General Dynamics and the private sector holding on to a lot of the information, and that's pretty much as far as he could go. But Congress was bang on. They were not afraid of the topic. They did not demote the topic as we see so many people do with Little Green Men, Venus, and swamp gas. They didn't do that. And thank God, I was expecting at some point the X-Files music to start playing. It did not happen. They took the topic seriously, and rightfully so. And this actually gives me hope for further hearings. Now, there are people out there at play that I believe need to be there. I think the next round we might see Jay Stratton. Hopefully his book comes out by then. I'd love to see him sit in. On a civilian side, from the blackvault.com, I would love to see John Greenwald in there, because he has really moved the ball forward with his success and sometimes lack thereof, even though it makes it a success, for the information that he has received on FOIA requests to all government agencies regarding the subject. I would like to see somebody like Hal Puthoff put up there. Let's put him on the stand and let him say what he can in public. A lot of people wouldn't agree with that one. I think at 80-some years old, he may want to dodge this subject to say, hey, my time has passed, and leave it to others. But a lot of people believe that Hal Puthoff has been the puppet master for the last 50 years on this subject. We know that Eric Davis should be speaking, or Admiral Wilson. Their documents were submitted as evidence previously. We need to hear from one of them. Let's see them deny it right off the hop. I want to see that happen. I don't think we're going to get celebrity insiders or experiencers in there. I don't see Travis Walton. I don't see Whitley Strieber going in there, or even Chris Bledsoe. I don't think the timing is right for that whatsoever. It would be nice, but I don't think Congress is getting to that. My wish going forward is that we can see more of the questions and understanding that this topic does happen more around the world than just at U.S. military bases, sensitive areas, and nuclear power facilities. I know why they're playing that card. That's the card that leads to budgets. The threat narrative, and I sound like a broken record, is leading to trillions of dollars in government spending. Trillions of dollars that will be on the hook for companies from Raytheon to General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and other major aerospace firms that are all secretly testing out technology at places like Area 51 and a few other bases. They want that money. Then there is the second group of disclosure for dollars groups that are out there wanting to cash in on this as well. They can't cash in if it's a threat narrative, because if there is no threat, there is no national security. If there's no national security at stake, there is no money. They want that money. It's like playing for big bucks and hoping that you don't hit a whammy. If you remember, Press Your Luck. I think, though, that there is hope for another hearing. If the same Congress people can come on in and ask the same tough questions to another group of people, we're heading in the right direction. Does it mean disclosure? No. And look, there is half the UFO community, and I even see it in our chat rooms and on our social media, that people are upset that there was no proof given. There was no evidence. There was no UFO videos, photographs, anything to give us more. We know that. And if you didn't know that going into the hearing, then you probably are used to getting coal for Christmas, which is right around the corner. I will be submitting my Christmas list to all of you because, yes, I still do believe in Santa Claus at 51 years old. But that being said, we knew that wasn't going to happen. The people who have the answers are so tied up by non-disclosure agreements, they don't have the opportunity to say what they want to say on a public spectrum. That's why these hearings are a little bit of a farce. But that being said, Congress is allowed to push the ball forward more often, and that is exactly what they did. And hopefully they will continue that momentum moving forward with this subject. The other thing that I want to point out is if you looked at the front row behind the speakers, there was a lot of social media influencers on this subject. Some who make documentaries like James Fox, others who have giant YouTube channels like Jesse Michaels and Chris Ramsey sitting side by side. Lester Nair was there from UAP Disclosure. We've had him on the show. He's done absolutely incredible with everything. Look, we see all of this thing, all of these people, these influencers getting in on the subject. There were many more who didn't get in because there is only a limited amount of seats. A good friend of this show, Jason Gilmet and Darcy Weir, were both there, hoping that something was going to happen. It didn't. They didn't get in. You got to get up early. Like some people were lining up before 5, 6 o'clock in the morning in order to try and get that seat. Others, though, were very highly influential. People who are trying to take this subject to another level. I was surprised David Grush wasn't there. Ryan Graves sat on the front row. He testified last year or earlier this year, pardon me. This is something that we have to move the ball forward on if we're getting the information out there. And the heavy hitters were there. I was surprised George Knapp was not there. But then you look on social media, as we stated earlier in the show, about Logan Paul tweeting it out and his interest. Well, if you go on X alone, Logan Paul on just X is followed by 6.8 million people. He also has a lot of influence with places like UFC, WWE, and of course his YouTube channel and podcast that have millions upon millions of subscribers. He's getting the message out because he feels this is something that needs to be discussed. Good for Logan on doing that. I don't follow the guy, okay, but the fact is it's getting the word out, and this is what influencers do. This is why they have so much pull. We may, as the 40-something and up crowd, not enjoy the fact that people like him are talking about this with some sort of authority. But you know what? It would be nice if somebody like Logan Paul would take a look at this subject a little bit deeper, do a deeper dive, and see the reality of what's going on. Because once again, as was said in the congressional hearings, according to the threat narrative, this subject is only happening in the waters off the coast, around military bases, and around sensitive areas like nuclear power facilities. There's so much more to this that people like Logan Paul have to learn. And hopefully they take the time to do so. And it's not just a one-hit wonder tweet that he puts out as he looks towards finding out, like the rest of us, what's in the sky above. But everything on this end seems very positive. I hope you see it that way too. If you don't, that's quite all right. There's a lot to be disappointed about, like no new evidence, no new proof, and no new information moving the ball forward. And yes, we are tired of, I can't tell you that, or let's hear it in a skiff. We're trying to get beyond those points. Nancy Mace said that best on X, which I suggest you follow her if you want to have interest in this story. Congress did the right thing. They have to now keep the momentum up. That is your Dave 101. Let's get to the news.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News.
Loud noises!
I am good at things, fighting and reading the news.
It's time once again for Spaced Out Radio's Weird News of the Week.
How many of you out there are cat owners? Well, I got 2 of them in my house. Love them to death. The one can't stand me. The other one's finally starting to warm up. As every cat owner knows, the little furballs can be destructive. They might push glasses off the table, shred your couch, or relentlessly bully the dog. Or they might shatter your skull, snap your spine, and leave you screaming in a pool of your own blood. Yeah. Not exaggerating. That's apparently what happened to Chris Rowley. The 59-year-old professional musician was descending the stairs in his home when his playful young cat jumped at his legs. Rowley lost his balance and tumbled down the staircase. During his fall, he sustained injuries paramedics would later say resemble those of a severe car crash victim. However, the worst was yet to come. His injuries left Rowley unable to move and reach his phone. All he could do was lie helpless and bleeding on the floor until his wife returned from work half a day later. Meanwhile, the cat, who really didn't care, kept kneading his chest to get his owner to get in play. Yeah, selfish cats are. Fortunately, Rowley survived his ordeal. He has a long way to go to full recovery, but at least he's alive. And apparently, they're keeping the cat. They haven't blamed the cat for having one of its spaz attacks and nearly killing the guy. No, they didn't do that. So what happened? Rowley's accident happened on October 23rd. On a day he was home alone as his wife had just left for her shift at a children's care facility. The professional musician and vocalist was coming down the stairs when his cat decided to, jump at him. Yeah. It's a Sphinx kitty called Eric Morecambe, after the British comedian. It lunged at Rowley's feet. It jumped onto my leg, and I lost my footing and went down 14 stairs and ended at the bottom, he says. I can't remember much, just falling fast. It was quick, and it was over within seconds. In those few seconds, though, Rowley sustained horrendous injuries. He said doctors are still finding the full extent of the damage, but just the list is immediately obvious that it would hurt, make you cringe. As he bounced down the staircase, he cracked his skull open, broke a bone in his neck, received 2 spinal fractures, snapped 9 ribs. Additionally, he tore his lungs and began bleeding internally while he was bleeding externally as well. The man didn't initially realize he hurt his head until he saw the blood pooling underneath him. As horrific cherry on top of this Sunday of pain, Rowley found himself almost completely immobilized. I couldn't get up. I couldn't physically get up. It's the hardest sensation. It's like claustrophobia. You can't get out, and you can't physically get anywhere or do anything. Couldn't even scream. Wow. He was there for literally 14 hours. My partner works nights, and it happened late evening, and there was no one else in the house. He was obviously screaming for help because he was in agony, but nobody could hear him except the damn cat. This isn't some inspirational story about the cat going to fetch help, though. Instead, what did it do? Sat on his chest, started kneading and purring on his fractured ribs. I'm telling you, this cat was trying to kill him. Absolutely. Finally, at 10:30 in the morning, his wife Jackie returned home. She goes, I normally get home around 8:30, but that day I got held back and I didn't get back till about 10. I opened the door and I heard him screaming and saw the blood. She immediately called for emergency. Fortunately, first responders were quick to act and the ambulance was in front of their home within minutes. But it's a long road to recovery. Months, in fact. The paramedics had to pump an absolutely hilarious cocktail of painkillers into him just so they could peel him off the floor. Oh, man. Hopefully this guy gets healthy. But they're keeping the cat. That's the main thing. And you know right now, as we speak, that cat is plotting another hit and run. That's your news. As we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LDAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright for Spaced Out Radio and SMR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Blue Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right, we're clear. Good show, everybody. Audience, give yourselves a hand. You guys were great tonight. Just fantastic. Just fantastic. You know, I got one of those skittish cats too, that just like spazzes on everything. Like, he never attacks me, but I remember, like, I've got a pretty steep, like, I got small stairs. You know, they aren't the big ones. They're like a 2x10 instead of a 2x12. And a couple of times that cat has gone racing by me on the stairs while I'm heading down. And it's like, Geez, almost takes you out. One time I actually slipped down a couple of stairs. You know, when you're slipping on your heels, that sucked. That really sucked when that happened. But it's, I feel for that guy, man. I do. That would have hurt. I keep moving because my sciatic nerve on my right side is just killing me right now. That's what I do. Just move it on out. Ben Eubanks, how you doing? Good to see you. Who else was in here that hopped in late that I saw? Moody Mongol. Deborah Rudy. Oh, no. I got 2 cats as it is. That's enough. Deb with a natural hat trick of super chats. 4 in total now. Anybody know what a natural hat trick is? Oh, that was a fun show tonight. I really enjoyed tonight. Natural hat trick is when you hit something 3 times in a row. So let's say you score 3 goals in a row, or you hit 3 touchdowns in a row. Thank you, Polly. Love you, Deboroni. I know that feeling, Ben. Anybody else out there have like sciatic nerve problems? And you know what I'm going through right now, doing the butt shift every now and again. So you can only like sit for 10 minutes and you can walk for like 10 minutes. And then you have to sit for 10 minutes and then walk for 10 minutes. There you go, Moody. There's the nose. Drew Banky, how you doing, buddy? Bring back the dreads, Drew. Bring back the dreads, man. Mama Catherine, what are you still doing awake, young lady? Have you put May 1st to 4th on your calendar yet? You and Charlie better be there. I am personally going to drive Mama Catherine out to Rachel, Nevada. Personally. Charlie is awesome. Love Charlie. What's in Rachel, Nevada? The mountains behind Rachel, Nevada is where Area 51 is. And all of the roads that head towards those mountains are restricted because they are actually entry points. Drew, you're the best, dude. Thank you. Love it when our guests check in. Makes me feel good. I was at the black mailbox. See if I can find the picture. The black mailbox isn't in the proper spot that it was. Let's go back to 2023 here. Let's get through 2024. Where are we here? That's August. Let's go to May. When was it? May? See? Black mailbox. There it is. Yeah, the original one, that the black mailbox is the original one that replaced the original one. If that makes any sense. There's now apparently the road to Turnoff has a white mailbox there. We didn't go to the security area. I want a photo of me beside the sign. That's all I want. Like 2 seconds. Go up there beside the sign. That's all I want. I'd be good with that. Except there's no point in going out to Rachel on the weekends because they don't fly anything on the weekends out there because they know that's when the tourists are out there. They usually fly Thursday. I think how it breaks down is Monday, Tuesday is testing, Wednesday's the walkthrough, Thursday's the test flight, or Wednesday night's the test flight, Friday's the either test flight or briefing, Saturday, Sunday are off. I think that's how it goes. Yes, that's where I was earlier, Blue Cruise. All right, guys, tomorrow night on the show, George Lunsford's going to join us. We're going to get into some cryptid talk. No, we're not. We're going to get into Bermuda Triangle and UFOs. Oh, that's going to be fun. And maybe a little bit of cryptids as well, because I know George likes a good Sasquatch story. Tomorrow night, thank you tonight to Deborah Rooney ×4, including the natural hat trick, T-Bone ×2, Richard ×2, Area 53, Cosmic Joe, Chill Farm, Search and Destroy, Bigfoot Rob, Scott, and Greg in Thailand for the great super chats. Much love to all of you. We'll see you tomorrow night. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell. We are here 7 days a week for your entertainment needs of the woo and all the stuff that's going on. We'll see you very soon, everybody. Good night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.